The invitation arrived on heavy cream cardstock, embossed lettering announcing a charity auction at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. Black tie, benefiting the St. Jude Children's Oncology Center. A worthy cause, the kind of event Keanu Reeves typically avoided. Not because he didn't believe in charity. He gave generously, had for years, quietly, anonymously when possible. But these high-profile galas, with their cameras and cocktail conversations and competitive donation displays, they exhausted him. Everyone performing wealth. Everyone watching everyone else. The charity often felt secondary to the social theater. But this invitation was different. It came with a handwritten note from Dr. Elena Vasquez, the director of St. Jude's. He'd been donating to her hospital for 5 years, always anonymously. Somehow she found out. The note was simple and direct. Keanu, I know you prefer privacy. I respect that. But your presence at this event would help us raise significantly more funds. These children need us. If you can find it in yourself to attend, it would mean everything. Elena. He met her once, briefly, at a medical conference where he'd been researching for a role. She was passionate, brilliant, uncompromising in her advocacy for pediatric cancer patients. Her hospital treated children regardless of their family's ability to pay. They turned no one away. Bills that would bankrupt families were absorbed by the hospital. It was exactly the kind of institution Keanu believed in supporting. He called his assistant. Book a flight to New York for next Thursday. Return Friday night. And find out who handles wardrobe for these things. I need a tuxedo that fits. You're actually going to charity gala? Are you feeling okay? It's for sick kids. I can handle one night of small talk. I'll make the arrangements. Should I book a suite somewhere? The Plaza? The St. Regis? No, just a clean room. Greenwich Village, if possible. Something quiet. His assistant knew better than to argue. Keanu had been famous for decades. Rich beyond most people's comprehension. But he'd never developed the taste for luxury that seemed to afflict so many in his position. He lived in a modest house. Drove his own motorcycle. Took the subway when he was in New York. Tipped service workers extravagantly, but never made a show of it. The following Thursday, he flew to JFK on a commercial flight, coach section, reading a book on astrophysics he'd been meaning to get to. A few people recognized him, but respected his space. He developed a demeanor over the years that communicated friendliness but also boundary. He'd smile, nod, acknowledge recognition, but in a way that didn't invite intrusion. The hotel in Greenwich Village was exactly what he'd wanted. A boutique place, no doorman, no fuss. Just a clean room with a comfortable bed and windows that opened. He checked in under a slightly modified name, dropped his bag, and immediately went for a walk. October in New York. His favorite time. The air had that sharp clarity that only came in autumn. Leaves turning into few trees that lined the streets. The city busy but not oppressively so. He walked for 2 hours. Got coffee at a place that didn't recognize him. Sat on a bench in Washington Square Park watching students and chess players and street musicians. This was wealth too. Time. Freedom. The ability to sit on a bench and exist without pressure. Around 6, he returned to the hotel to prepare. The tuxedo fit well, simple and classic. Not designer flashy, just well-made. He looked at himself in the mirror. 59 years old. Gray in his beard. Lines around his eyes. But healthy. Present. Alive. Grateful for all of it, even the hard parts. Especially the hard parts. They'd taught him what mattered. He took a taxi to the Met. Could have arranged a car service, something impressive. But a yellow cab felt right. The driver recognized him immediately. Hey, you're that guy. The action movies. My kids love you. Thank you. I appreciate that. You going to that fancy thing at the museum? I drove 3 other people there already. All rich folks. Big tippers, though. I'll give them that. Hopefully it raises a lot of money. It's for a children's hospital. That's good. Real good. My nephew had cancer when he was 6. Leukemia. He's okay now, 15 years later. But it was rough. Those medical bills, they destroyed my sister's finances. Even with insurance. I am sorry. That shouldn't happen. No, it shouldn't. But it does. Every day, they arrived at the museum. The facade was lit dramatically. Red carpet running up the steps, photographers clustered at the entrance. Keanu paid the fare and added a $200 tip. For your nephew. I'm glad he's okay. The driver stared at the bills. Sir, this is too much. It's exactly right. Have a good night. Keanu avoided the main entrance with its gauntlet of photographers. He'd called ahead, arranged with the museum to use a side entrance reserved for guests who wanted privacy. A young woman in museum staff uniform met him at the door. Mr. Reeves, this way, please. Dr. Vasquez asked me to escort you directly to the reception hall. Thank you. I appreciate the discretion. Of course. We have several guests using this entrance tonight. Not everyone wants to be photographed. Inside, the museum had been transformed. The Great Hall was set up with round tables draped in white linen, centerpieces of white roses and candles, a stage at the far end with an auctioneer's podium. A string quartet played Mozart. Waiters circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. The room buzzed with the particular energy of wealthy people gathering for a sanctioned display of generosity. Keanu scanned the space. Maybe 200 people, all dressed expensively, all comfortable in this environment, all, presumably, capable of donating significant amounts. The cumulative wealth in this room probably exceeded $50 billion. If even a fraction of that went to the hospital, lives would be saved. Dr. Elena Vasquez spotted him almost immediately. She was 52, gray-streaked dark hair pulled back, wearing a simple black dress. No jewelry except small earrings. She'd spent her money on her hospital, not herself. Keanu respected that immediately. Keanu, you came. Thank you. She embraced him warmly, unself-consciously. I know this isn't your scene. It's one night. If it helps the kids, it's worth it. It will help. Your presence already has. We've had 3 people increase their pledges when they heard you'd be here. Then I'm glad I came. She led him to a table near the back. Not front and center. Not hidden either. A reasonable compromise. I'll put you with some people I think you'll like. Academics mostly. An art professor, a museum curator. No one who'll make you talk about movies all night. I appreciate that. The other guests at the table stood as he approached. Introductions were made. Margaret Shun, a philanthropist who funded arts education. Professor David Kim, who taught art history at Columbia. Sandra Okonkwo, a curator specializing in contemporary art. A few others. All polite, all intelligent, all seemingly understanding that Keanu was there to support the cause, not to be a performing celebrity. The conversation was easy. They talked about the museum's latest exhibitions, about a controversy over a painting's provenance, about the economics of art in the modern world. Keanu listened more than he spoke, which was his preference. Ask good questions. Learn things, as he could handle. Across the room, at the head table closest to the stage, Keanu noticed a man holding court, surrounded by a cluster of people, all leaning in, all laughing at his comments. The man was around 48, aggressively fit, with a tan that looked professionally maintained and teeth that were unnaturally white. He gestured broadly as he spoke, commanding attention, dominating the space around him. Keanu recognized him. Brandon Cole, tech billionaire, founder and CEO of Nexus Technologies, a cloud computing company valued at $40 billion. Cole was famous not just for his wealth, but for his pronouncements. He tweeted constantly, often controversially, believed that entrepreneurial success made him an authority on everything from education policy to climate science to art, was regularly in the news for clashes with regulators, labor organizers, journalists who questioned him. That's Brandon Cole, Margaret Chin said quietly, noticing Keanu's gaze. Our biggest donor tonight, or so he's made sure everyone knows. You don't sound impressed. I'm grateful for his money, less grateful for his ego. He pledged $5 million tonight, but spent 20 minutes at cocktail hour telling everyone about it. Professor Kim leaned in. He's also been pontificating about art, explaining to Sandra here, our actual curator, what makes contemporary art valuable, as if his wealth makes him an expert. Sandra smiled tightly. He told me that art is primarily a financial instrument, a way to store wealth and avoid taxes. Well, I suggested it might also have aesthetic and cultural value. He laughed, said I was naive. Charming, Keanu said. He represents a certain kind of donor, Dr. Vasquez said, having joined the conversation. We need his money, but sometimes I wonder if it's worth the cost to our dignity. The lights dimmed slightly, a signal that dinner would be served soon. Guests began settling into their seats. Waiters emerged with the first course. Keanu ate quietly, continuing the conversation with his tablemates. The food was excellent, as it should be at a venue like this. But he'd have been just as happy with a sandwich. Across the room, Brandon Cole's voice rose above the ambient conversation. He was telling a story about a business deal, about outmaneuvering a competitor, about the ruthlessness required for real success. His table laughed on cue. Keanu watched the performance with a mix of fascination and distaste. This kind of ego, this need for constant validation, it was exhausting just to witness. During dessert, Brandon stood with his champagne glass raised. The room quieted, everyone turning to look at him. I want to propose a toast, he announced, his voice carrying across the hall. To real philanthropy. To people who build things, who create jobs, who move the economy forward. To people who make real money, not pretend money for cameras. An uncomfortable silence followed. Several people raised their glasses uncertainly. Dr. Vasquez smiled diplomatically, but Keanu could see the tension in her shoulders. This wasn't appropriate. This was someone using a charity event as a platform for self-aggrandizement. Brandon sat down, looking pleased with himself. But he wasn't finished. A few minutes later, as dessert plates were being cleared, his voice rose again. He was talking to his table, but loudly enough that several nearby tables could hear clearly. You know what amuses me about these events? The actors. The Hollywood people who show up and act like they're important because they're famous. But let's be honest, were they really? He paused for effect, making sure he had attention. Keanu felt several people at his table tense. They knew what was coming. So did he. Clowns. Literally. Paid clowns to entertain rich people. They pretend for a living. They don't know anything about real money, about real business. They make a few million for a movie and think that makes them financial geniuses. But they're not. They're just pretty faces who memorize lines. His table laughed nervously, but several people glanced toward the back of the room, toward Keanu. Someone at Brandon's table whispered something to him. Brandon followed their gaze. His eyes landed on Keanu, sitting quietly at the back table. A smile spread across Brandon's face. Not apologetic, triumphant. Oh, sorry. Didn't realize we had Hollywood royalty in the room. No offense, Boothie. The entire room froze. Every eye turned to Keanu. Some people looked embarrassed. Some curious. Some hoping someone would say something, put Brandon Cole in his place. The silence stretched out, uncomfortable and expectant. Keanu met Brandon calmly. No anger in his expression. No embarrassment. Just a steady, evaluating look. Then he nodded slightly. An acknowledgement that he'd heard. Not agreement, but acknowledgement. And he turned back to his conversation with Margaret Shun as if nothing had happened. Not taking the bait. Not giving Brandon the confrontation he seemed to want. Margaret leaned close. You don't have to tolerate that. It was incredibly rude. Keanu shrugged slightly. He's entitled to his opinion. An opinion built on ignorance and arrogance. Maybe, but responding only gives him a platform. Sometimes the best response is no response. Professor Kim leaned across the table. You're more gracious than I would be. Brandon Cole is a bully. He thinks wealth gives him the right to be cruel. Wealth doesn't give anyone rights. But insecurity often masks itself as arrogance. He's probably struggling with something. You're defending him? I'm trying to understand him. There's a difference. The conversation shifted, but the energy in the room had changed. Brandon's comment hung in the air. People spoke more quietly. Glanced between Keanu and Brandon. Wondered if there would be a sequel to this exchange. Brandon, meanwhile, looked satisfied with himself. He'd won the exchange in his mind. Put an actor in his place. Demonstrated his superiority. He ordered another glass of champagne. Laughed loudly at something. Dominated his corner of the room. Keanu remained calm. Externally at least. Inside, he felt something stirring. Not anger exactly, but a recognition. This man, this Brandon Cole, represented something Keanu had encountered many times. Wealth without wisdom. Power without purpose. Success that measured itself only in dollars, never in impact. And tonight, in this room, raising money for children with cancer, that emptiness was on full display. He didn't plan what happened next, didn't strategize or scheme. But when the auction began, when that particular painting came up for bid, something inside him recognized the moment, recognized the opportunity. Not for revenge. That wasn't his nature. But for teaching, for demonstration, for showing everyone in that room, especially Brandon Cole, what money actually meant, what it could do when wielded with purpose instead of ego. The lesson was about to begin, and it would be expensive, but worth every dollar. Dr. Elena Vasquez took the stage as dessert plates were cleared. The lights dimmed slightly, a spotlight illuminating her. She looked small up there, but her voice was strong, amplified by the microphone clipped to her dress. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. Your support means everything to the children we serve at St. Jude Children's Oncology Center. She spoke for 5 minutes about the hospital, about the 300 children currently in treatment, about families who'd lost everything trying to save their kids, who came to St. Jude's as a last resort and found hope, about research that was extending survival rates, giving children futures they wouldn't have had 10 years ago. Her passion was evident, authentic. The room listened respectfully. Even Brandon Cole appeared partially attentive, though he checked his phone twice during her speech. Tonight, we're auctioning several incredible items, generously donated by our supporters. All proceeds go directly to patient care and research. I'm thrilled to introduce our auctioneer, James Collins, who's volunteered his services for this evening. James Collins took the stage to warm applause. He was British, mid-60s, impeccably dressed. Had spent his career at Sotheby's and Christie's auctioning multi-million-dollar artworks and antiques. His voice had that smooth, authoritative quality that made people want to bid, made opening their wallets feel prestigious. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Shall we raise some money for an extraordinary cause? The first few items were standard charity auction fare. A week at a villa in Tuscany. Dinner prepared in your home by a Michelin-starred chef. A vintage Rolex from the 1960s. The bidding was spirited. These people weren't afraid to spend. The Tuscany villa went for $150,000. The chef's dinner for $80,000. The watch for $95,000. All good, all helpful, but not transformative. Then the energy in the room shifted. 2 assistants in white gloves carried out a large frame, setting it carefully on an easel that had been positioned center stage. They pulled away a covering cloth. The painting was revealed. Abstract, bold colors, breathtaking movement. Even from the back of the room, Keanu could feel its power. James Collins smiled. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the centerpiece of tonight's auction, an original work by Gerhard Richter. Untitled, 1989. Oil on canvas, 79 by 118 inches. This piece has rarely been exhibited, held in a private collection for the past 30 years. The owner has generously donated it tonight for this auction. A murmur rippled through the room. Gerhard Richter was one of the most important living artists. His works regularly sold for tens of millions at auction. This was a major donation, a major opportunity for the hospital, and a major acquisition for whoever won the bidding. This work is estimated between $8 and $12 million, James continued. We'll open bidding at $1 million. Do I have $1 million? Several hands went up immediately. The bidding moved quickly. 1 million, 1.2, 1.5, 1.7, 2 million. At 2 million, only 2 hands remained active. One belonged to a serious collector seated near the front, a man in his 70s who'd been coming to these auctions for decades. The other belonged to Brandon Cole. Brandon was smiling broadly. He wanted this painting, not because he cared about art, but because owning a Richter was a status symbol, something you hung in your office lobby, something you mentioned casually to visitors. Proof you'd arrived. Proof you had taste, or at least the money to buy taste. $2 million, James announced. I have 2 million. Do I hear 2.2? The elderly collector shook his head. Dropped out. Too rich for his budget tonight. James scanned the room. 2 million once. 2 million twice. A hand rose in the back. Quiet. Calm. Steady. Keanu's hand. Every head in the room turned. James blinked, caught off guard. We have a new bidder. A gentleman in the back. Your bid, sir. 5 million. The room gasped. Not a small increment. A massive jump. From 2 million to 5. An aggressive bid. A statement. Brandon Cole froze, his smile evaporating. He turned in his seat, stared at Keanu. Keanu looked back calmly. No challenge in his expression. No aggression. Just steady presence. James recovered quickly. $5 million from the gentleman in the back. Extraordinary support. We have 5 million. Do I hear more? Brandon's hand shot up. 5.5. 5.5 from Mr. Cole. We have 5.5. Keanu raised his hand again. No hesitation. 7 million. Another gasp from the room. This was escalating. This was becoming something more than an auction. James barely had time to acknowledge the bid before Brandon responded. 7.5. 9 million, Keanu said. His voice was calm, almost bored, like he was discussing the weather. The energy in the room was electric now. This wasn't about the painting anymore. This was about something else. Ego. Principle. A collision between a man who'd publicly humiliated actors and an actor who'd quietly absorbed it and was now responding in the loudest way possible. With his wallet. Brandon's face was flushing red. He looked at his advisors. One whispered urgently. Another shook his head. But Brandon's jaw was set. His ego wouldn't let him back down. Not publicly. Not after what he'd said. 10 million. His voice was strained. The smile was gone. This was costing more than he'd planned to spend tonight. More than the painting was probably worth. But backing down would be humiliation. Worse than overpaying. Keanu didn't hesitate. 12 million. Silence. Complete, absolute silence. $12 million. At the high end of the estimate. Maybe beyond it. For a charity auction, this was astronomical. Everyone stared at Brandon. Waiting. The ball was in his court. His move. Brandon stared at Keanu. Then at the painting. Then back at Keanu. His jaw clenched. Every instinct screamed to keep bidding. To win. To not let some actor beat him at his own game. But his advisors were shaking their heads vigorously now. One showed him something on a phone. Numbers. Valuations. This was too much. Even for him. Even for his ego. Slowly, Brandon lowered his hand. The movement was small, but everyone saw it. Surrender. James waited. Professional enough to give time for a counterbid. 12 million once. Pause. 12 million twice. Longer pause. The room held its breath. Sold. For $12 million to the gentleman in the back. The room erupted in applause. Thunderous, stunned applause. Dr. Vasquez had her hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. $12 million was more than they'd hoped to raise all evening, much less from a single item. Margaret Chen grabbed Keanu's arm, squeezing hard. Professor Kim was shaking his head in disbelief. Everyone at the table staring at Keanu with something approaching awe. But Keanu wasn't done. He stood. The room fell silent immediately, curious. He walked to the stage. James Collins handed him the microphone, looking uncertain about where this was going. Keanu held the microphone quietly for a moment, looked out at the audience. His eyes passed over the room, stopping briefly on Brandon Cole. Then he spoke. Thank you, James. This is an incredible painting. Richter is a master. I'm honored to own it. Pause. Let that settle. But I won't be. Confusion rippled through the room. What did that mean? Keanu continued. Instead, I'm donating this painting directly to St. Jude Children's Oncology Center to hang in their facility, so children, families, staff can see beauty every day. Or if Dr. Vasquez decides, she can auction it again in the future, raise even more funds. He turned to Dr. Vasquez, who was openly crying now. I know the 12 million will help, but art helps too. Beauty heals. These children deserve to see something beautiful during their treatment. He handed the microphone back to James. Then, before stepping off the stage, he said one more thing. He looked directly at the camera that had been live streaming the event. But really he was speaking to the room, speaking to Brandon Cole, speaking to everyone who needed to hear it. Money isn't about how much you have. It's about what you do with it. Anyone can hoard wealth. Only some use it well. The room exploded. Standing ovation. Not polite charity event applause. Real, thunderous approval. People on their feet, clapping, some shouting, some crying. Dr. Vasquez embraced Keanu on stage, whispering thanks he couldn't hear over the noise. Brandon Cole sat frozen. His face was crimson. Not from alcohol now. From embarrassment. From rage. From the realization that he'd been publicly, spectacularly outmaneuvered. Not with words. Not with arguments. But with action. Keanu hadn't said anything about the insult. Hadn't defended actors or attacked Brandon. Just acted. And that action spoke louder than any speech could have. The people at Brandon's table avoided his eyes. His assistants checked their phones. The discomfort was palpable. Brandon stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly. He walked toward the exit. His entourage scrambled to follow. He left without saying goodbye to Dr. Vasquez. Without congratulating Keanu. Just left, his ego bruised, his arrogance shattered. Keanu returned to his table. Margaret Chun was beaming. That was the most magnificent thing I've ever witnessed. Professor Kim agreed. A bully put in his place. Without a single harsh word. Just calm, devastating demonstration of what actually matters. I just bought a painting for a good cause, Keanu said. You did considerably more than that, Sanders said. You taught a lesson. About wealth. About purpose. About grace. That man needed teaching. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. People approached Keanu's table to congratulate him, to thank him, some to apologize for Brandon's behavior. Keanu was gracious with everyone. It wasn't about him. It was about the children. But everyone knew better. It was a little bit about him. About calling out arrogance. About demonstrating that wealth without purpose was empty. About remembering what it meant to be decent. The collector who'd bid earlier found Keanu. What you did tonight. The donation. It's inspiring. I've been thinking about donating from my collection. You've convinced me. I'll call Dr. Vasquez this week. That would mean a lot. You made us all look bad, you know, in the best way possible. As the crowd thinned, Dr. Vasquez found a moment to properly speak with Keanu. They sat at the now empty table, waiters clearing around them. I don't know how to thank you. 12 million. And the painting. This is transformative for us. You do transformative work. It's the least I could do. Why? Why so much? I know you're generous, but this. Because it was right. And because sometimes people need reminding what money is for. Not for hoarding. Not for status. For helping. She took his hand. You've changed lives tonight. Literally. We can treat more children. Fund more research. Help more families. Your choice tonight will ripple forward for years. Then it was money well spent. Near midnight, Keanu left through the same side exit he'd used to enter. No photographers. No fuss. Just a quiet departure. The young staffer who'd escorted him and was waiting. Can I call you a car, Mr. Reeves? No, thank you. I'll catch a cab. After what you did tonight, you're a hero. Let us at least get you a proper car. A cab is perfect. But thank you. He stood on Fifth Avenue in the cool October night. The city still humming with energy. A yellow cab pulled up within seconds. He got in, gave the driver his hotel address. The driver didn't recognize him, was listening to talk radio, didn't attempt conversation. Perfect. Keanu sat in the back seat watching the city pass by, thinking about the evening, about Brandon Cole's face when he'd been outbid, about Dr. Vasquez crying, about the painting that would now hang in a children's hospital, about the message that had been sent not just to Brandon, but to everyone in that room, maybe to everyone watching online. His phone buzzed. Text from his publicist, Amanda. The video is everywhere. 20 million views already. You're trending worldwide. This is the best PR you've ever had, and you weren't even trying. He didn't respond. Didn't need to. This hadn't been about PR. Hadn't been about image management. Had been about doing what felt right in the moment. About using resources for good. About teaching by example. If people responded positively, good. If they didn't, that wouldn't have changed his choice. At the hotel, he paid the fare with a generous tip, rode the small elevator to his floor, entered his room, and immediately went to the window, opening it to let in the night air. He could hear the city below. Car horns, distant music, the hum of millions of lives happening simultaneously. He made tea in the room's small kettle, sat by the window drinking it, thought about wealth and what it meant. He had more money than he could spend in several lifetimes. That wasn't bragging, just mathematics. The films paid well. The investments had done well. He lived modestly. The money accumulated. The question was what to do with it. Some people like Brandon Cole, accumulated wealth as score, as proof of worth, as something to display and defend. The having was the point. But Keanu had never understood that. Money was a tool, nothing more. You could use it for good or for waste. You could let it poison you, or you could let it flow through you to others. The choice was always there. Tonight he'd used $12 million, plus a painting worth perhaps another million, to make a point, to help children, to teach a lesson, to demonstrate values. That was money used well. That was wealth with purpose. He finished his tea, set the cup on the small desk, checked his phone one more time. Hundreds of messages. He'd read them tomorrow. Tonight, he just wanted quiet, wanted to sit with what had happened, wanted to feel the satisfaction of having done something right. He thought about Brandon Cole, about the humiliation on his face, about the anger. Part of Keanu felt bad about that, didn't enjoy causing pain, even as someone who'd caused it first. But another part recognized the necessity. Some people only learned through demonstration, through being shown rather than told. Brandon had said actors were clowns who knew nothing about real money. Keanu had shown him what someone who knew nothing about real money could do with it. Shown him the difference between having and giving, between accumulation and impact. Would it change Brandon? Keanu didn't know. Some people were too invested in their egos to learn, too defended against growth. But some could change. Some, when shown a mirror, saw themselves clearly and chose to become better. He hoped Brandon was the latter. Time would tell. He finally slept around 2 a.m. woke at 7 to his phone ringing. His friend David Chun, his lawyer. I saw the video. Everyone's seen the video. Keanu, that was epic. Brandon Cole deserved every bit of that. It wasn't about humiliating him. It was about helping the children. I know. That's why it's perfect. You didn't lower yourself to his level. You rose above. And he looked small as a result. They talked for a few minutes about logistics. The $12 million would be wired from Keanu's account within 48 hours. The painting would be officially transferred to the hospital. Paperwork would be handled. All standard, all straightforward when you had good lawyers and good intentions. After hanging up, Keanu showered, dressed, checked out of the hotel. He had a flight back to Los Angeles that evening, but the day was free. He walked through Greenwich Village, had breakfast at a tiny diner where nobody bothered him, browsed a bookstore, bought 3 books he didn't need, but wanted anyway. Normal things. Regular life. The kind of day that reminded him he was human, not just a symbol or a story or a trending topic. Around noon, his phone rang. Unknown number. New York area code. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Hello. Mr. Reeves, this is Thomas Williams. I'm an assistant to Brandon Cole. Interesting. Yes. Mr. Cole would like to meet with you, if you're open to it, privately, to discuss last night. Keanu thought about it. Why? He didn't specify, but he was insistent, said it was important. I'm only in town until this evening. Flying back to LA tonight. Mr. Cole can accommodate your schedule, wherever and whenever you'd like. Keanu hesitated. Part of him wanted to decline. What was there to gain? But another part, the part that always sought understanding, was curious. All right, 1 p.m. Central Park. Bethesda Fountain. Just him. No assistance. Understood. I'll relay that. Thank you, Mr. Reeves. An hour later, Keanu stood by Bethesda Fountain watching tourists take photos and children feed pigeons. Cool October afternoon. The park was beautiful. Trees turning gold and red. He waited, wondering if Brandon would actually show, if he'd come alone as requested, if this would be an apology or an attack or something else entirely. At exactly 1 p.m., Brandon Cole appeared, walking alone. No entourage, no security. Just a man in expensive casual were looking smaller and less certain without his audience. He approached Keanu slowly, stopped a few feet away. They stood there, awkward. Brandon spoke first. Thank you for agreeing to meet. You asked. I was curious why. Brandon looked at the fountain, at the water, anywhere but at Keanu. I wanted to apologize. For what I said last night. About actors. About you. Keanu didn't respond immediately. Studied Brandon. Saw the discomfort. The embarrassment. Accepted. Just like that. You apologized. I accepted. What else is there? Brandon finally looked at him. You're not going to make me grovel? Rub it in. No. You already feel bad enough. I can see that. Brandon sighed. Sat down on a bench near the fountain. Keanu joined him, keeping a respectful distance. You know why I said those things? Last night, I could guess, but I'd rather hear it from you. Because I was jealous. The word hung between them. Jealous. Keanu hadn't expected such honesty. Jealous of what? Your ease. The way people love you. The way you move through the world without needing to prove anything. I built a $40 billion empire. Changed industries. Created thousands of jobs. And still people hate me. Think I'm arrogant. Think I'm ruthless. Think I only care about money. Do you only care about money? Brandon hesitated. I did. For a long time. Because money was a way to keep score. A way to prove I mattered. That I was important. And now I have more money than I could ever spend. And I'm miserable. I'm surrounded by people who tell me what I want to hear. I have power and influence. And I'm lonely. Really lonely. Keanu listened. Saw beneath the aggression a man who was struggling. Who had built an empire on sand. Last night, Brandon continued, you didn't just outbid me. You show me how empty my wealth is. I was going to buy that painting to hang in my office lobby. A status symbol. Something I could point to and say, see, I've arrived. You bought it to give away. To help sick children. The difference was humiliating. It wasn't about you. I know. That's part of what makes it worse. You weren't even trying to humiliate me. You were just doing what was right. And in the process, you showed everyone, including me, how small I am. Keanu turned to look at Brandon directly. You're not small. You're lost. There's a difference. Lost. Maybe. Brandon, you built a successful business. That's not a small achievement. Requires skill, intelligence, drive. But somewhere along the way, you forgot why it matters. Success isn't about accumulation. It's about contribution. About using what you have to make things better. Easy for you to say. You're loved. You have the easy path. Keanu laughed, but without humor. Easy path. I lost my father young. Struggled with dyslexia. Was homeless in my 20s. Lost my girlfriend and our daughter in a car accident. Lost my best friend to an overdose. My sister battled leukemia. Easy is the last word I'd use to describe my life. Brandon was quiet. He hadn't known. Most people didn't. Keanu didn't advertise his pain. I am sorry. I didn't know. Why would you? I don't publicize my tragedies. But my point, Brandon, is that everyone has struggles. Everyone has pain. How you respond to pain defines who you are. You can become bitter. You can use it as an excuse to be cruel. Or you can use it to develop empathy. To remember that everyone's suffering. And choose to be kind despite it. I don't think I know how to be kind anymore. If I ever did, then learn. It's never too late. Brandon looked at his hands. Expensive watch. Manicured nails. Hands that had typed fortunes. Built empires. But never extended in genuine help. How? How do I start? You start small. You see someone in need. You help. No cameras. No press release. Just help because it's right. Give me an example. Keanu thought. Today, when you leave here, find someone struggling. A homeless person. A service worker. Anyone who's usually invisible to you. Talk to them. Really talk. Learn their story. Then help if you can. Small way. Big way. Doesn't matter. Just help. That's it. That's the start. Do it enough times, it becomes a habit. Habit becomes character. Character becomes a life lived with purpose. Brandon nodded slowly. You make it sound simple. It's not simple, but it's possible. And Brandon, you have resources to make a real difference. More than most. The question isn't whether you can. It's whether you will. They sat in silence for several minutes. The park continued around them. Life happening. Moments passing. Finally, Brandon stood. I should go. But Keanu, thank you. For meeting. For the honesty. For not mocking me more than I deserved. I'm not interested in mocking. Only in helping if I can. Can I ask you one last thing? Sure. Why are you so kind? Honestly, after everything you've been through, the losses, the struggles, why not bitter? Why not cruel? Keanu stood too, looked at Brandon with something like sadness. Because bitterness only hurts yourself. Cruelty adds pain to a world that already has too much. I choose kindness because it's the only thing that makes sense. The only thing that reduces suffering instead of increasing it. That's such a simple philosophy. The best ones usually are. Brandon extended his hand. Keanu shook it. I'll try. Can't promise I'll change overnight. But I'll try. That's all anyone can do. Brandon walked away. Keanu watched him go through the park. A figure slightly less certain, slightly more thoughtful than the man who'd arrived. Would he actually change? Keanu didn't know. Some people couldn't. Too entrenched in their ways. Too invested in their egos. But some could. Some, when shown a mirror, saw themselves clearly and decided to become better. He hoped Brandon was one of the latter. Time would tell. Keanu spent the rest of the day exploring Manhattan. Visited a small bookstore in the village. Ate lunch at a quiet diner alone. Just soup. Rode the subway. Stood because all the seats were taken. A woman recognized him, smiled but didn't intrude. Respected his privacy. He was grateful for that. That evening he flew back to Los Angeles. Commercial flight. Economy class. Not a private jet. Not first class. Just a regular aisle seat. He read during the flight. A biography of James Baldwin. Lost himself in the words. In a 5-hour journey home, he thought about the charity event. About Brandon. About the $12 million. About the painting now hanging in a children's hospital. About ripples continuing to spread. His phone was full of messages when he landed. Most he ignored. But one from Dr. Elena Vasquez stood out. Keanu, you won't believe this. After the event, 7 other donors pledged major gifts. $18 million total. Your actions inspired them. We've met our year's funding goal in one night. Thank you isn't enough. You changed everything for these children. He replied simply. It was an honor to help. Keep me updated on the progress. Home in Los Angeles, he rode his motorcycle through empty late-night streets. The cool air cleared his mind. The city sleeping. He arrived home around midnight. Went inside his quiet house. Made tea. Sat on his back deck, watching the lights spread out below. Thought about wealth. About power. About what they meant. Brandon Cole had $40 billion. Keanu had a fraction of that. But who was richer? Who had more? Keanu thought about this often. Wealth wasn't a bank account. It was relationships, experiences, contribution, meaning. He had friends who loved him for who he was, not what he could give. Had work that fulfilled him. Had opportunities to help people almost every day. That was wealth. Real wealth. The kind that lasted. Brandon had billions, but was lonely, surrounded by sycophants, measuring his worth by numbers on a screen. That was poverty, masquerading as success. The difference between them wasn't money. It was purpose. Keanu drank his tea, thought about the children who would benefit from that night, the families who would have hope, the lives that would be saved. That was legacy. That was meaning. Not the films, though he was proud of that work. Not the fame, though it had its uses. But the choices. The small daily choices to be kind, to be generous, to be present, to see people, to help when possible. His phone buzzed. Text from Amanda, his publicist. Morning shows are calling. Everyone wants you. Want to talk about the auction, the kindness, the billionaire takedown. What do I tell them? He typed back. Tell them no. It wasn't about attention. It was about helping children. If they want a story, they should talk to Dr. Vasquez. Let her talk about the work they do. You're sure? This is golden PR. I'm sure. The work speaks for itself. Okay, you're the boss. But for the record, you're missing a moment to shape the narrative. The narrative shapes itself. I'm just living my life. He finished his tea, went to bed, thought about doors opening, about paths appearing, about the beautiful randomness of life, about grace given and received, about the endless possibility of human transformation, and about a billionaire who'd been shown a mirror, who'd stumbled into a moment of clarity, who'd been given a chance to become something more than he'd been. Whether he'd take that chance was up to him. Keanu had done what he could. Opened the door. Walking through it was someone else's choice. But he'd opened it. That was enough. That was everything. That was the work. 3 weeks after the charity auction, life returned to its normal rhythm for Keanu. Filming resumed on his current project. Training sessions with his stunt coordinator. Early mornings and long days. The work he loved. The discipline that kept him grounded. But there were differences. Small ones. Meaningful ones. People approached him differently now. Not just fans wanting photos or autographs, but people with stories. People who'd been moved by what happened at the Met. Who'd seen the video. Who'd been inspired to think differently about wealth and giving and purpose. A woman stopped him at a coffee shop in Los Feliz. Mid-30s, professional clothes, kind eyes. "Mr. Reeves, I'm sorry to bother you, but I watched what you did at that auction. The painting, the donation. It changed how I think about money." "How so?" "I work in finance. Make good money. Been saving aggressively for years. Building wealth. But watching you give away $12 million, plus that painting, it made me realize I've been hoarding. Saving for some future that might never come while people need help now. I donated $50,000 to a children's hospital in my city. First major donation I've ever made. It felt better than any raise I've ever gotten." "That's beautiful. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for showing me what matters. I've been so focused on accumulation, on hitting some arbitrary number in my retirement account. I forgot why money exists. To help. To make things better." She left, and Keanu sat with his coffee thinking about ripples. About how one action, one choice, could inspire others. Could create chains of generosity that extended far beyond the original gesture. He'd given $12 million. This woman had given $50,000. How many others had given what they could? How much good had cascaded from that single night? His phone rang. "David Chun, have you seen the news about Brandon Cole?" "No." "What news?" "He's announcing something. Press conference in an hour. My assistant just sent me the alert. Might want to watch." Keanu pulled up the live stream on his phone. Brandon Cole, standing at a podium in what looked like a corporate conference room. The Nexus Technologies logo behind him. Reporters filling seats. Cameras everywhere. Brandon looked different. Still expensively dressed. Still groomed. But something in his posture had changed. Less aggressive. Less certain. More thoughtful. "Thank you all for coming," Brandon began. "I'm here to announce the creation of the Cole Foundation. I'm committing $500 million to healthcare and cancer research. The foundation will focus on pediatric oncology, family support, and breakthrough research that could save children's lives." Murmurs from the press. $500 million was significant. Major philanthropic commitment. Cameras flashed. Brandon continued. "The first major grant will go to St. Jude's Children's Oncology Center. $50 million over 5 years. To expand their facilities. To fund research. To ensure no family is turned away because they can't afford treatment." More murmurs. Questions shouted. Brandon held up his hand. "I know some of you are wondering why. What changed? The truth is, I was shown a mirror recently. Saw myself clearly. Didn't like what I saw. This foundation is my attempt to become better. To do better. To use what I have for something that matters." A reporter called out. "Can you tell us who showed you that mirror? Who inspired this change?" Brandon paused, seemed to consider, then simply said, "A friend. Someone who taught me that wealth isn't about how much you have. It's about what you do with it." He didn't name Keanu. Didn't need to. Everyone who'd seen the auction video knew. The connection was obvious. Keanu watched the rest of the press conference. Brandon handled questions with surprising humility. Admitted he'd been wrong about many things. Acknowledged he'd let ego drive him instead of purpose. Committed to changing not just his giving, but his leadership style. His entire approach to life. When it ended, Keanu's phone immediately rang. "Dr. Vasquez. Keanu, are you watching?" "I am. $50 million. Over 5 years. Do you know what this means? We can expand our research wing. Add 100 more beds. Treat thousands more children. This is because of you. Because of what you said to him. What you showed him. This is because of Brandon. He's the one making the donation. But you're the one who inspired it. He told me. When he called to announce the grant. Said you met with him after the auction. Talked to him about purpose. About using wealth well. He said it changed his perspective. I'm glad he's doing this. Truly, so am I. But Keanu, you need to understand. That night at the auction, the 12 million you gave, that was transformative. But this, Brandon's commitment, that's generational. That's funding that will save lives for decades. And it happened because you chose compassion over contempt. Because you met with a man who'd insulted you and taught him instead of punishing him. After hanging up, Keanu sat quietly. He'd spent an hour in Central Park with Brandon. One conversation, and it had led to this. $500 million committed to helping children. $50 million to Dr. Vasquez's hospital. The mathematics of compassion were staggering. One moment of grace multiplying into resources that would save thousands of lives. His publicist called. The media is going crazy. Everyone connecting Brandon Cole's announcement to the auction, to your donation. They want statements, interviews, the whole thing. No statements, no interviews. This is Brandon's moment, his decision. I'm not making it about me. Keanu, you're passing up incredible PR. This story, billionaire reformed by actors' kindness, it's perfect. I don't need perfect PR. I need to live with integrity. Brandon made a choice. Good for him. That's the story. You're impossible. I am consistent. Over the following days, the story took on a life of its own. Think pieces about philanthropy and ego. Articles analyzing Brandon Cole's transformation. Comparisons between performative charity and genuine giving. Keanu's name appeared in all of them, but he refused all interview requests. Let the story develop without his input. Let Brandon have his moment of growth. A week after Brandon's announcement, Keanu received an email from Margaret Chun, the woman who'd sat next to him at the auction. Keanu, I was inspired by what you and Brandon have done. I'm donating $10 million to St. Jude's. Also establishing scholarships for medical students who want to specialize in pediatric oncology. Your example showed me I've been too conservative with my wealth. Time to do more. Thank you for the inspiration. He replied, Margaret, this is extraordinary. Dr. Vasquez will be so grateful. And those scholarships will create the next generation of doctors who save children's lives. Thank you. Another email arrived from the elderly collector who'd bid on the Richter painting. Mr. Reeves, I'm donating 3 paintings from my collection to various children's hospitals around the country. You were right that night. Beauty heals. Art isn't just investment. It's medicine for the soul. I want more children to have access to that medicine. The ripples continued spreading. Other donors at the auction, inspired by Keanu and Brandon, made commitments. Collectively, over $100 million in new donations to various children's health causes. All traceable back to that one night, that one painting, that one choice to respond to insult with grace. 2 weeks after his announcement, Brandon Cole called Keanu directly. Can we meet? I like to talk, and I'd like you to meet some people. What people? The team I'm putting together for the foundation. I want to do this right, not just throw money at problems, actually solve them. I need advisors who understand purpose over profit. People like you. They met at a restaurant in Santa Monica. Private dining room. Brandon arrived with 3 other people. A doctor who specialized in pediatric oncology. A nonprofit consultant who'd spent 30 years in philanthropy. A former patient, now 25, who'd survived childhood leukemia and dedicated her life to advocacy. Brandon introduced everyone. This is my advisory board. People who will keep me honest. Make sure the foundation actually helps instead of just feeding my ego. The doctor, Dr. Sarah Lynn, spoke first. Mr. Reeves, Brandon told us about your conversation in Central Park, about what you said regarding purpose and giving. That conversation fundamentally shaped how we're approaching this foundation. We wanted to thank you. I didn't do anything special, just had an honest conversation. You did more than that, the former patient, Maria Santos, said. You showed Brandon that wealth isn't about winning. It's about impact. My family went bankrupt paying for my treatment when I was 7. We lost our house. My parents' marriage didn't survive the stress. I'm alive, but the cost was devastating. This foundation, if it's done right, means other families won't have to sacrifice everything to save their child. They spent 2 hours discussing the foundation's plans. Research funding, family support services, lobbying for healthcare reform, creating a model that other wealthy individuals could follow. Brandon listened more than he spoke, deferred to the experts. acknowledged what he didn't know. Ask questions. At one point, Dr. Lin turned to Keanu. Would you consider joining our board? Your perspective would be valuable. And frankly, your name would help us recruit other major donors. I'm not sure I'm qualified. I'm not a healthcare expert. You're an expert in something more important, Brandon said. You understand what matters. You understand that people aren't balance sheets. That compassion isn't weakness. That's what we need. Not another business person optimizing metrics. Someone who keeps us focused on humans. Keanu considered. Let me think about it, but I'm happy to help however I can. After the meeting, Brandon walked Keanu to his motorcycle. I meant what I said in there, about you joining the board. But also, I wanted to thank you, personally, for not destroying me. You could have, at the auction, after. You had every right to humiliate me publicly. Instead, you met with me, talked to me like a human, gave me a chance to be better. Everyone deserves a chance to grow. I've needed that chance more than once in my life. Seemed right to offer it to you. Most people in your position wouldn't have. They'd have enjoyed watching me suffer. I don't enjoy suffering. Not mine, not anyone else's. The world has enough of that already. Can I ask you something? That night at the auction, when you outbid me, was that planned? Were you trying to teach me a lesson? Keanu thought about it. Honestly, no. I intended to donate to the hospital regardless. But when you started bidding, when I saw your face, your certainty that you'd win, something clicked. I realized this was an opportunity. Not to punish you, but to demonstrate. To show everyone in that room, including you, what money could do when used well. $12 million to make a point. That's expensive teaching. It wasn't about the money. It was about the impact. And it worked. You changed. Others changed. Dr. Vasquez's hospital has resources now they couldn't have imagined. Children will live because of that night. That's worth any amount of money. Brandon nodded slowly. I'm trying. To be different. To be better. Some days it's easy. Some days I fall back into old patterns. Want to control everything. Prove I'm the smartest person in the room. Then I remember your words. About purpose over ego. About contribution over accumulation. It helps. Growth isn't linear. You'll have good days and bad days. What matters is the direction. The overall trajectory. You're moving the right way. Thanks to you. Thanks to you. I opened a door. You walked through it. That was your choice. A month after the foundation announcement, Dr. Vasquez invited Keanu to visit St. Jude's. I want you to see what your donation made possible. What Brandon's grant will enable. You need to see the impact. Keanu flew to Memphis. The hospital was in a modest building, nothing fancy. All the money went to care, not architecture. Dr. Vasquez met him at the entrance. Thank you for coming. This means a lot to the families. To the kids. She gave him a tour. The research wing. The treatment rooms. The family center where parents could stay while their children received care. Everything was clean and functional, but not luxurious. Resources allocated to what mattered. Medicine. Research. Support. In the main lobby hung the Richter painting. The abstract colors vibrant and alive. Several children stood looking at it. A girl, maybe 9, bald from chemotherapy, stared up at the canvas with wonder. It's like a rainbow exploded, she said to her mother. It is beautiful, isn't it? Dr. Vasquez whispered to Keanu. That's Sophia. She's been in treatment for 6 months. Leukemia. Every time she comes for her sessions, she spends time with this painting. Says it makes her feel better. That it reminds her there's beauty in the world beyond her illness. Keanu approached Sophia and her mother. Knelt down to Sophia's eye level. I am Keanu. I really like this painting too. Sophia's eyes went wide. You're the movie star. The one with the dog. I've been in a movie with a dog, yes. That dog was so cute. Are you here to see the painting? I am. And to meet people like you. To see how you're doing. I'm okay. The treatment makes me tired and my hair fell out. But Dr. Vasquez says I'm getting better. The numbers are good. That's wonderful. I'm so glad. Did you know this painting belongs to the hospital? Someone donated it so all of us could see it. Pretty cool, right? Very cool. Why would someone do that? Give away something so expensive? Keanu thought about how to answer. Because they wanted children like you to have something beautiful to look at. To remind you that the world is full of wonder. Even when things are hard. That's nice. I want to be like that when I grow up. Someone who gives things to people to make them happy. I think you'll be exactly that. Sophia's mother had tears in her eyes. After Sophia moved on, continuing through the lobby, the mother approached Keanu. You're him, the one who donated the painting. I read about it. The auction. The $12 million. I had some resources. The hospital needed them. It worked out. My daughter's treatment costs $2 million. We don't have insurance that covers it all. We'd have gone bankrupt. Lost everything. But St. Jude's, they're treating her regardless. Because of donations like yours. You saved her life. You saved our family. She started crying. Keanu didn't know what to say. Just stood there, bearing witness to her gratitude and pain and relief. Finally, he said, your daughter is wonderful. She's going to do great things. Because of you, she'll have the chance. Dr. Vasquez showed him more of the facility, introduced him to families, to children in various stages of treatment, some doing well, some struggling, all fighting with courage that humbled him. Every family had a story about financial devastation avoided, about bills that would have destroyed them, absorbed by the hospital, about hope when they'd had none. In the research wing, Dr. Vasquez introduced him to a scientist named Dr. James Park. Dr. Park is leading our work on a new immunotherapy treatment. Early results are promising. Could revolutionize how we treat certain pediatric cancers. Tell me about it, Keanu said. Dr. Park explained the science, using the body's immune system to fight cancer, teaching it to recognize and destroy cancer cells. The treatment was showing remarkable results in early trials. But research was expensive, required funding, required donors willing to invest in possibilities, not certainties. Your donation, plus Mr. Cole's commitment, that's funding 3 years of research. 3 years where we can push this forward. If it works, we could save thousands of children, change survival rates dramatically. That's what your money is buying. Not things, not status, but futures. Later, in Dr. Vasquez's office, Keanu sat exhausted. Not physically, emotionally. The weight of what he'd seen. The children fighting. The families sacrificing. The doctors working miracles with limited resources. This is what it's really about, Dr. Vasquez said. Not galas or auctions or donations as performance. But this. Children who get to live because people with resources chose to help. You've given that to dozens of families. Brandon's foundation will give it to thousands more. That's legacy, Keanu. That's what matters. I should have been doing this all along. More of it. I have the resources. There's no excuse not to use them well. You've been doing it. Anonymously. For years. I know. I've seen the records since I found out you were one of our donors. You've been giving consistently, generously, quietly. This auction, it was just the public version of what you've always done. It's not enough. It's never enough. The need is infinite. But you're doing what you can. That's all anyone can do. Flying back to Los Angeles, Keanu thought about Sophia, about her looking at the painting, finding beauty in the middle of her fight, about her mother's tears, about Dr. Park's research, about all the lives connected to that one night at the Met. He'd spent $12 million. Brandon Cole had committed $500 million. Others had donated more. Collectively, hundreds of millions of dollars mobilized because Keanu had responded to an insult with grace instead of rage. Because he'd chosen to teach instead of destroy. Because he'd shown Brandon what money was actually for. The mathematics were staggering. One conversation in Central Park. 1 hour of honesty. Leading to resources that would save thousands of lives. That would fund research changing survival rates. That would prevent families from financial devastation. This was power. Real power. Not the ability to destroy or humiliate, but the ability to inspire, to teach, to show by example what was possible, what mattered. At home, Keanu found an email waiting. From Brandon Cole. Subject line, thank you. The message was long. Several paragraphs. Brandon writing about the changes in his life. About meeting with the foundation board regularly. About visiting sick children. About learning to listen instead of dictate. About discovering that meaning came from impact, not accumulation. The email ended. A year ago, I would have told you I had everything. Billions of dollars. a successful company, power and influence. I would have said I'd won, but I was miserable, lonely, empty. Now I have less time for myself, less ability to do whatever I want, more obligations, more people depending on me, and I'm happier than I've been in decades, because now I have purpose. You gave me that, not the money or the resources. The understanding that wealth without purpose is poverty in expensive clothes. Thank you for that gift. It's worth more than any painting. Brandon. Keanu read it twice, then replied simply, "The credit belongs to you. You made the choice to change, to grow, to become someone different. I just asked questions. You did the work. Proud of you." K. That weekend, Keanu had dinner with his sister Kim and his nephew Sam at Kim's house in the valley. Simple meal, pasta and salad. Family time. Sam, now 17, asked about the auction. "Uncle Keanu, everyone at school is talking about it. About you and that billionaire. About the money. It's pretty epic. It worked out well. The hospital got resources they needed. But why'd you give away the painting? You could have kept it. Put in your house. It was worth like $1 million. What would I do with $1 million painting in my house? Look at it alone? That seemed wasteful. Better that children see it. That it brings beauty into a place that deals with so much pain. I guess. But still, $1 million. Sam, can I tell you something I wish I'd understood when I was your age? Sure. Money is a tool. That's all. You can use it to build or to hoard, to help or to isolate. The having isn't the point. The using is. I've made a lot of money in my career, more than I need. So the question becomes, what do I do with it? Keep it in accounts, accumulating, buy things I don't need, or use it to make the world slightly better? For me, the third option is the only one that makes sense. But doesn't it feel bad? Giving away millions of dollars. No, it feels good. Better than spending it on myself ever has. Because I get to see the impact. Get to know that children are alive because of choices I made. That's worth more than any possession. Kim Similet. You're teaching my son to be a socialist. I'm teaching him to be human. To remember that we're all connected. That those of us with resources have obligations to those without. Later, some approach Keanu privately. Can I ask you something? About money? Of course. I've been saving. For my part-time job. Got about $2,000. I was going to buy a car when I turned 18. But after hearing you talk, I'm wondering if I should donate some. But $2,000, that's not going to change anything. It's not $12 million. Keanu put his hand on Sam's shoulder. $2,000 might not seem like much. But to the right person at the right time, it changes everything. Pays for textbooks. Covers rent for a month. Buys medicine someone can't afford. Don't dismiss your ability to help just because you're not a millionaire. Every act of generosity matters. Every choice to help instead of hoard makes a difference. So, I should donate it? I think you should use some to help. But also get your car. Balance, Sam. You can take care of yourself and others. Both are important. Maybe donate $500. Keep $1,500 for your car. That's generous without being self-destructive. Where should I donate? Where does your heart pull you? What matters to you? Sam thought, there's this animal shelter near us. They're always asking for help. I volunteer there sometimes. They need money for food and medical care for the animals. Sounds perfect. $500 will help a lot of animals. And you'll feel good knowing you contributed to something you care about. Thanks, Uncle Keanu, for teaching me this stuff. Dad never did. Before he left, your dad had his own struggles. But yes, I'm glad I can be here for you. To show you that success isn't just about what you achieve. It's about what you give back. 3 months after the auction, the ripple effects continued. Brandon Cole's foundation was fully operational. Making grants, funding research, supporting families. Brandon himself had changed visibly. Less aggressive on social media. More thoughtful in interviews. Still ambitious, still driven, but with purpose now. With direction beyond accumulation. Other billionaires had taken notice. Several announced similar philanthropic initiatives. Tech founders committing billions to healthcare, education, climate change. Some cynics said it was just PR. Tax avoidance disguised as charity. But the money was real. The impact was real. Children were being helped. Research was being funded. Lives were being saved. If the motivation wasn't pure, did it matter if the results were good? Keanu thought about that question often, decided it was complicated. Purity of motive mattered, but so did impact. If Brandon Cole had started his foundation for ego, for image rehabilitation, but it still saved children's lives, wasn't that better than not having the foundation at all? Wasn't imperfect help better than perfect in action? He didn't have clear answers, just kept making his own choices, kept giving, kept using his resources to help, kept living with integrity as best he understood it. That was all anyone could do. Make the best choices possible with the information and resources available. Then make the next choice, and the next, building a life of accumulated small goods. 6 months after the auction, Dr. Vasquez called with an update. Keanu, I wanted you to know. Sophia, the little girl you met, the one who loved the Richter painting, she's in remission. Complete remission. The treatment worked. She's going to be okay. Keanu felt something catch in his throat. That's wonderful. That's everything. Her mother wanted me to tell you. Wanted you to know that the painting you donated was Sophia's touchstone during treatment. That seeing something beautiful every time she came and made the hard days more bearable. That beauty healed alongside medicine. I'm so glad. Thank you for telling me. There are 37 other children currently in treatment who've told us similar things about that painting. It's become part of our therapy, part of the healing environment. You were right. Art heals. Beauty matters, not just to adults in galleries, but to children fighting for their lives. After hanging up, Keanu sat quietly. Sophia was in remission, would grow up, would have a future, would maybe become someone who gave things to people to make them happy, like she'd said. One life, among thousands, among millions, but real, specific. Her mother had stood in the lobby crying, thanking him for saving her daughter. That wasn't abstract. That wasn't just numbers on a donation form. That was a human being, a child, a future. That was what the money bought. Not things, not status, but futures, possibilities, hope. That was legacy. That was meaning. That was the answer to Brandon Cole's sneering question about what actors knew about real money. This is what real money could do when used with purpose, with love, with understanding that wealth was responsibility, that having resources meant obligations to those without, that being blessed meant blessing others. Keanu pulled out his phone, texted Brandon. Sophia is in remission. The little girl from the hospital. Thought you'd want to know. Your foundation helped make that possible. Brandon replied immediately. That's beautiful. Thank you for telling me. This is why we do it. One child at a time, one family at a time, building something that matters. You come a long way from that night at the auction. I had a good teacher. You showed me what was possible, what I could become if I chose to. I am grateful. The work is just beginning. Keep going. I will. Promise. Keanu set down his phone, looked out at the Los Angeles skyline, thought about chains, about how one action led to another, how his choice at the auction had inspired Brandon, how Brandon's foundation had inspired others, how collectively they were changing systems, saving lives, creating ripples that would extend far beyond any of them. He thought about the insult, about Brandon calling actors clowns, saying they knew nothing about real money. How it would have been easy to respond with anger, with a cutting remark, with public humiliation. But he'd chosen differently, chosen to respond with action instead of words, with demonstration instead of argument, shown rather than told what money meant. And that choice had changed everything. For Brandon, for Dr. Vasquez's hospital, for Sophia and thousands like her, for families who would be spared financial devastation, for children who would live instead of die. That was power, real power, not the kind that destroyed, but the kind that built, that healed, that transformed, that created possibility where none had existed. Keanu stood, made tea, sat on his back deck in the cool evening air, grateful for the randomness that had led to that night, grateful for the resources that allowed him to respond the way he had, grateful for Brandon's willingness to learn, to change, to become something more than he'd been, grateful for Sophia's remission, for her future, for all the futures being built with money used well, with wealth deployed for purpose, with resources transformed into hope. This was the life he wanted, the person he wanted to be, Not perfect, not a saint, just someone who helped when he could, who used what he had well, who remembered that being blessed meant blessing others, who understood that the only measure of wealth that mattered was what you did with it. Not how much you had, but how you used it. That was everything. That was the lesson. That was the legacy worth leaving. A year after the auction, Keanu received an invitation. Engraved card, formal script. The Cole Foundation's first annual gala, honoring individuals who'd made significant contributions to pediatric health care. The venue was the same, the Metropolitan Museum of Art. The irony wasn't lost on him. He called Brandon. "I got your invitation. I hope you'll come. We're honoring Dr. Vasquez and several researchers whose work your donation and our foundation funding made possible. It feels right to do it where everything started. Were you called actors clowns and I outbid you for a painting?" Brandon laughed. Actually laughed. A year ago, he would have bristled at the reminder. Now he could find humor in it. Exactly there, where I was an arrogant ass, and you taught me a lesson I desperately needed. We're even putting up a plaque. You're not. I am. In the entrance. Small, tasteful. Says something like, "This space witnessed a transformation. May all who enter remember that wealth without purpose is poverty in expensive clothes." Dr. Vasquez approved it. That's very meta of you. I'm learning. Will you come? I'll come. But I'm not making a speech. No speech required. Just show up. Let people see that change is possible. That billionaires can learn. That actors know a hell of a lot about real money. The night of the gala, Keanu arrived early. Wanted to see the space before it filled with people. The museum looked similar to that night a year ago, but the energy was different. This wasn't about competition or ego. This was about celebration, about impact, about lives saved and futures created. Dr. Vasquez found him in the main hall. "Keanu, thank you for coming. This night wouldn't be possible without you. Without what you started, what Brandon started, what all the donors made possible, what you inspired. Don't minimize your role. You showed us all what was possible when someone with resources chose to truly give. Not performatively, not for recognition, but because it was right." The gala filled with people. Different crowd than last year. Fewer socialites. More doctors, researchers, former patients, families who'd been helped by the foundation. The energy was warm, genuine. People weren't here to be seen. They were here to celebrate something real. Brandon arrived with his advisory board. Dr. Sarah Lynn, Maria Santos, the former patient, the nonprofit consultant, others who joined. He'd built something real, something with structure and purpose and accountability. He spotted Keanu, approached with a smile. "You came. I wasn't sure you would. I said I would. I keep my promises. I know. One many things I've learned from you. Words matter. Commitments matter. Integrity matters." He paused. "Can I introduce you to someone?" Brandon led him to a young woman, maybe 30, in a wheelchair. She had the look of someone who'd fought hard battles and won. "Keanu, this is Dr. Rachel Martinez. She's one of the researchers we're funding. Her work on immunotherapy is revolutionary." Rachel extended her hand. Firm grip despite her physical limitations. "Mr. Reeves, it's an honor. Your donation last year funded the first year of my research. We've made breakthroughs we couldn't have imagined. Published findings that are changing treatment protocols globally. Tell me about it." She explained the science, teaching the immune system to recognize and destroy cancer cells. Early trials showing remarkable success rates. Children who would have died now living. The excitement in her voice was contagious. This wasn't abstract. This was her life's work. Her purpose. "How did you get into this field?" Keanu asked. "I had leukemia when I was 8. Survived, obviously. But the treatment left me with complications. Nerve damage. That's why I used the chair. I decided if I was going to live with these limitations, I wanted to make sure other kids didn't have to. That future treatments would be better. Less destructive. More targeted. You're turning your pain into purpose." I learned that from people like you. People who use their resources, their platforms, their experiences to help others. You could have responded to Brandon's insult with cruelty. Instead, you responded with grace. That's turning pain into purpose, too. The program began. Dr. Vasquez took the stage, spoke about the foundation's impact. Numbers that were staggering. Over 200 children in treatment who wouldn't have had access without foundation support. 3 major research initiatives funded. 15 families saved from bankruptcy. The mathematics of compassion made tangible. Then she introduced award recipients. Researchers, doctors, nurses, social workers, each one doing extraordinary work. Each one making the impossible possible. The room applauded each recipient. Not polite charity gala applause. Real appreciation. Real recognition. Finally, Dr. Vasquez paused. There's one more person I need to acknowledge. Someone who isn't receiving a formal award tonight because he'd refuse it, but someone without whom none of this would exist. Keanu tensed. He knew where this was going. A year ago, at an event in this very room, something extraordinary happened. An insult became an opportunity. A moment of ugliness transformed into a catalyst for change. One person chose grace over revenge. Chose to teach instead of destroy. Chose to demonstrate what wealth could do when used with purpose. She looked directly at Keanu. That choice changed everything. Changed Brandon Cole. Changed this foundation. Changed hundreds of lives. And will change thousands more in years to come. Keanu Reeves, would you please stand? He didn't want to, but Margaret Shun, sitting next to him, pulled his arm. Stand. Let them see you. Let them thank you. He stood. The room erupted. Standing ovation. Not for him, he knew, but for what his choice had represented. For the possibility that people could change. That wealth could serve purpose. That one moment of grace could ripple forward infinitely. Brandon stood too. Started walking toward Keanu. Met him in the aisle between tables. Extended his hand. Keanu shook it. Then Brandon pulled him into an embrace. Whispered in his ear, "Thank you for saving my life. Not literally, but actually. Thank you for showing me how to live. You did the work. You changed because you showed me it was possible." Later, during dinner, Keanu found himself at a table with people whose lives had been directly impacted by the foundation. Sophia's mother was there. Sophia herself, now healthy, hair grown back, vibrant and alive. A father whose son was in treatment. A grandmother whose granddaughter had survived. Sophia recognized Keanu immediately. "You're the painting man, the one who gave us the rainbow explosion." "I remember you, Sophia. You're looking well." "I'm better. All better. The doctors say I'm in—" "What's the word, Mama?" "Remission, honey. Remission. That means the cancer is sleeping. Maybe forever. That's wonderful. I'm so happy for you. I want to show you something." Sophia pulled out a sketchbook. Opened it to reveal drawings. Abstract art. Bright colors. Movement and energy. "I'm learning to paint. Because of your painting. Because it made me feel better. Now I make art to make other people feel better." Keanu looked through her sketches. They were good. Really good. Raw talent combined with authentic emotion. "These are beautiful, Sophia. You're an artist. Maybe someday I'll be famous like Richter. Maybe my paintings will hang in hospitals too, to help kids like me. I think that's very possible. Keep creating. The world needs your art." Sophia's mother wiped her eyes. "She talks about you sometimes. About the man who gave the beautiful painting. About how kindness can be big and small. How everyone can help. You change how she sees the world. How we all see it." During dessert, Brandon returned to the microphone. "I have an announcement. The Cole Foundation has been successful beyond our projections. We've raised more money than anticipated. Had more donors commit than we expected. This is due to the incredible work of our team, our board, and the inspiration of people like Keanu Reeves." He paused. "Tonight, I'm announcing an expansion. The Cole Foundation is committing an additional $500 million over the next 10 years. $1 billion total to pediatric health care. But we're not stopping there. I'm personally pledging to match any donation made tonight, dollar for dollar. Whatever you give, I'll double it." Murmurs through the crowd. People pulling out phones, texting their financial advisors, calculating what they could commit. Brandon continued. "I've learned something this past year. Money multiplies when you give it away. Not literally, but in impact, in meaning, in the lives it touches. The more I give, the richer I feel. That's a paradox I never understood before. But I understand it now. The donations started immediately. People calling out amounts. 50,000, 100,000, 500,000. Brandon matching each one. By the end of the night, over $20 million have been pledged, doubled to $40 million with Brandon's matches. Dr. Vasquez was crying again. Happy tears. Overwhelmed tears. After the event, as people lingered, Keanu found himself in conversation with a group of medical students. They'd received scholarships from the foundation, were training to become pediatric oncologists. One of them, a young man named David, spoke up. Mr. Reeves, can I ask you something? How do you decide what to give to? There's so much need in the world. How do you choose? That's a good question. I don't have a perfect answer. I follow what moves me, what breaks my heart. For me, it's children. The idea that a child's life could be cut short because their family can't afford treatment, that's unacceptable. So I give there. But everyone's different. Everyone has causes that speak to them. But you have limited resources. Even someone as successful as you can't solve everything. True, but that's not an excuse to do nothing. I can't solve world hunger, but I can make sure some children get treatment. I can't fix the entire healthcare system, but I can fund research that saves lives. Perfect can't be the enemy of good. Do what you can with what you have. That's enough. A young woman in the group spoke. You've inspired so many people, not just with your donations, but with how you live, the way you treat people, the kindness you show. That matters as much as the money. I appreciate that, but I'm not perfect. I have bad days. I'm short with people sometimes. I fail at kindness more than I'd like, but I keep trying. That's all any of us can do. Keep trying to be better than we were yesterday. Around midnight, the gala ended. Keanu walked out with Dr. Vasquez and Brandon, the three of them standing on the museum steps looking at the New York City night. We did something good here, Dr. Vasquez said. Last year and tonight. Something that will echo forward. We're just getting started, Brandon said. 10 years of funding. Thousands of children will be helped. Research that will change medicine. This is legacy. Real legacy. How do you feel? Keanu asked him. A year later. Different man than you were. Brandon thought about it. I feel purposeful. For the first time in decades, I wake up knowing why I'm here. What I'm supposed to do. The money doesn't feel like a burden or a score anymore. It feels like a tool, a responsibility, a chance to do something meaningful before I die. That's growth. That's you. You show me the path. I just had to walk it. We showed each other. I learned from you too. About redemption. About how it's never too late to change. About how people contain multitudes. You were an arrogant ass that night, but you were also someone capable of growth, of learning, of becoming better. You prove that. It's inspiring. Dr. Vasquez looked at both of them. You too, an actor and a billionaire. An unlikely partnership, but you've created something beautiful, something that saves lives. I hope you both know how much it matters. How many people are alive because of your choices? They stood there a while longer. 3 people who'd been brought together by circumstance and choice, who'd created something larger than any of them individually, who'd proved that change was possible, that grace worked, that money used well changed worlds. Keanu flew back to Los Angeles the next morning. On the plane, he reflected on the year, on everything that had cascaded from that one night, from Brandon's insult and his response. The numbers were staggering. Over $1 billion committed to pediatric healthcare. Hundreds of children treated. Dozens of research projects funded. Families saved from bankruptcy. Lives transformed. But beyond the numbers, something else had happened. A narrative had changed. A story had been told about wealth and purpose and possibility. About how people could grow. About how grace worked better than revenge. About how one choice rippled forward infinitely. People had watched, had been inspired, had changed their own behaviors, had donated their own resources, had chosen kindness over cruelty, had remembered that we're all connected, that those with resources had obligations, that wealth was responsibility, that story, that narrative it was spreading, multiplying, creating cultural shift, that mattered as much as the money, maybe more, because changing hearts changed actions, changed choices, changed worlds. At home, Keanu found a letter waiting, handwritten, from Sophia, the little girl from the hospital. Dear Mr. Keanu, thank you for the painting. Thank you for helping me get better. Thank you for showing me that art can heal. I'm making paintings now. Lots of them. My teacher says I'm good. Maybe someday my art will hang in a hospital too. Maybe I'll help kids like you helped me. I think I would be good. Love, Sophia. P.S. The rainbow explosion painting is still my favorite. Keanu read it 3 times, then carefully folded it and placed it in a drawer where he kept important things. Letters from people he'd helped. Reminders of why the work mattered. Evidence that choices created consequences. That small acts multiplied. That one person could make a difference. Sophia was painting, creating beauty, planning to help others someday. The chain continued. The ripple spread. The work multiplied beyond him. That was legacy. That was meaning. That was everything. 2 years after the auction, Keanu received a call from an unexpected source. A producer from 60 Minutes. They wanted to do a segment on the Cole Foundation, on the transformation of Brandon Cole, on the ripple effects from that night at the Met. We want to tell the full story, the producer said. Not just the dramatic auction moment, but what came after, the real impact, the lives saved, the culture change. And we want both of you and Brandon, together. I don't do a lot of interviews. I know. That's part of what makes this compelling. You give generously but quietly. You changed a billionaire's entire worldview, but never sought credit. That humility, combined with Brandon's transformation, it's a story people need to hear. Especially now, when wealth inequality is at historic highs. When billionaires are increasingly criticized. This shows another path is possible. Keanu thought about it. His instinct was always to decline, to stay private, to let the work speak for itself. But maybe there was value in telling this story, in showing what was possible, in inspiring others to choose differently. Let me talk to Brandon. If he's comfortable with it, I'll do it. Brandon was more than comfortable. He was enthusiastic. This is a chance to show people that change is real. That ego can be transformed into purpose. That wealth can serve something beyond accumulation. I want to do it. Need you there, though. Without you, it's just another billionaire PR piece. With you, it's a real story about transformation. The interview was scheduled for 3 weeks later, at St. Jude's Hospital, in front of the Richter painting. The symbolism deliberate. This is where it all led. To beauty in a hospital. To children healing. To purpose made visible. The day of filming, Keanu arrived early. Watched the crew set up. Lights. Cameras. The machinery of media. Dr. Vasquez was there, looking nervous. I've never done television before. What if I say something wrong? Just tell the truth. That's all they want. Your story. The hospital's story. How lives have been saved. Brandon arrived with his advisory board. Dr. Sarah Lynn, Maria Santos, others who'd become essential to the foundation's work. They'd all be interviewed, all sharing pieces of the larger story. The correspondent was Leslie Stahl, veteran journalist, known for tough questions, fair but unsparing. Keanu respected that. This shouldn't be a puff piece. Should be real journalism. Leslie interviewed Dr. Vasquez first. Asked about the hospital's mission, about the families they served, about what the funding had meant. Dr. Vasquez was eloquent, passionate, spoke about children who'd lived because of donations, about research advancing, about hope where there'd been none. Then Leslie turned to the painting. This Gerhard Richter, valued at over $1 million. It hangs here in a hospital lobby instead of a private collection or a museum. Why? Because Keanu Reeves understood something most people don't. That beauty heals. That children fighting cancer need more than medicine. They need hope, wonder, something beautiful to remind them the world is worth fighting for. This painting does that. Every child who walks through this lobby sees it, responds to it, is changed by it. Can art really heal? I've seen it. Children who are depressed, withdrawn, terrified. They stop and look at this painting. Something shifts. They remember there's beauty in the world. That life has moments worth living for. Yes, art heals. Next, Leslie interviewed several families. Parents whose children had been treated, who'd been facing financial ruin before the foundation stepped in. Their stories were wrenching. Medical bills in the hundreds of thousands. Insurance that covered almost nothing. Families choosing between treatment and keeping their homes. One father, Jorge Martinez, spoke through tears. My daughter, Isabella, she had a brain tumor. Inoperable, they said, until Dr. Lin's research. The immunotherapy. It worked. The tumor shrunk. They could operate. She's alive. Healthy. Starting high school next year. Without the foundation, without the research funding, she'd be dead. My daughter will be dead. Leslie let the silence sit, then asked, "What do you want to say to the people whose donations made that possible?" "Thank you. It's not enough. Words aren't enough. But thank you. You gave us our daughter back. You gave us our future. We'll never forget. Never." Then came a main interview. Keanu and Brandon, sitting together in front of the painting. Leslie between them. Cameras rolling. Let's start at the beginning. Brandon, 2 years ago at a charity auction, you made some controversial comments about actors. About how they were, quote, clowns and knew nothing about real money. What were you thinking? Brandon didn't flinch. I was being an arrogant ass. Honestly, I'd built a successful company, made billions, and I'd let that convince me I was superior. That my wealth made me smarter, more important than people in other fields. It was ego, pure ego, and it was wrong. Did you know Keanu was in the room when you said it? No, not initially. When someone pointed it out, I doubled down, made a half apology that wasn't really an apology. I was performing, showing off. It was ugly. Leslie turned to Keanu. How did that feel? Being publicly insulted like that. Honestly, it stung. Not because I cared about Brandon's opinion of me, but because it revealed such contempt, such a fundamental misunderstanding of what matters. He was reducing people to their financial value, saying artists, people who create meaning and beauty, were worth less than people who accumulate wealth. That worldview, it's corrosive, but you didn't respond with words. You responded by outbidding him for a painting. $12 million. Then immediately donating it to this hospital. That was calculated. Not calculated exactly. More instinctive. I saw an opportunity to demonstrate something. To show everyone in that room, especially Brandon, what money was actually for. Not for winning. Not for status. But for impact. For helping. It felt right in the moment. Brandon, when Keanu outbid you, what did you feel? Humiliation. Rage. My ego was shattered. Here was this actor, someone I'd just insulted, outspending me, beating me in my own game, then donating the painting, making my wealth look small and petty by comparison. It was devastating, but it also changed you. It did. Not immediately. First, I was just angry, defensive, but then Keanu did something unexpected. He agreed to meet with me, privately. We sat in Central Park, and he talked to me like a human. Not like a billionaire who needed managing, but like a person who was lost, who'd forgotten what mattered. He showed me grace when he could have destroyed me. That grace changed everything. Leslie looked at Keanu. Why show him grace? Why not let him suffer the consequences of his behavior? Because punishment rarely teaches. It just breeds resentment. I wanted him to learn, to grow. You can't force that with cruelty, only with compassion, with holding up a mirror and saying, "This is who you are," but you could be someone different, someone better. That's what I tried to do, and it worked. Brandon did the work. I just opened a door. He walked through it. That takes courage. Takes willingness to admit you were wrong, to change. Most people can't do that. He did. Brandon spoke. That conversation in the park. Keanu asked me why I'd said those things, why I was so cruel. I told him I was jealous. Jealous of how people loved him, how he moved through the world with ease, how he had meaning and I just had money. He told me about his own struggles, losses I didn't know about, pain I couldn't imagine. And he said something I'll never forget. He said, "You're not small. You're lost. There's a difference." His voice caught. 2 years later, the memory still affected him. That distinction between small and lost. It gave me hope, told me I could change, could find my way. So I tried, started the foundation, started actually listening to people, started using my wealth for something beyond ego, and my life transformed. I'm happier now than I've ever been, because now I have purpose. Leslie interviewed Dr. Sarah Lynn next, about her research, about how foundation funding had accelerated breakthroughs, about children who were alive because of immunotherapy treatments that wouldn't exist without that funding. The science was complex, but Dr. Lynn explained it clearly, made understandable. made it real. We're seeing survival rates improve dramatically. Cancers that were death sentences 5 years ago are now treatable, curable in some cases. This is because of sustained funding. Because people like Keanu and Brandon chose to invest in possibility, in research that might fail, but might also save thousands of lives. That's what philanthropic funding enables. Risk-taking that traditional sources won't support. Then came Maria Santos, the former patient who'd survived childhood leukemia, who now served on the foundation's board. I almost died when I was 7. My family went bankrupt paying for treatment. Even with insurance, the out-of-pocket cost destroyed us financially. We lost our house. My parents divorced from the stress. I survived the cancer, but my family didn't survive the cost. What would have been different if the foundation had existed then? Everything. The financial stress would have been eliminated. My parents wouldn't have been fighting about money constantly, about which bills to pay, about whether to continue treatment or let me die to save the family. No parent should face that choice. No child should know their life is bankrupting their family. The foundation removes that burden. It says your child's life has value regardless of your bank account. That's revolutionary. Leslie turned back to Keanu and Brandon. The foundation has committed over $1 billion now. Hundreds of children treated, dozens of research projects funded, families saved from financial ruin. But beyond the numbers, what's the larger impact? Keanu answered, I think we've shown that wealth can serve purpose. That billionaires don't have to be villains. That actors aren't just clowns. That people can change. That grace works better than punishment. These aren't small things. These are cultural shifts. Changes in how we think about money and power and responsibility. Brandon added, I've had dozens of other wealthy people reach out, asking how to start their own foundations, how to give meaningfully, how to find purpose beyond accumulation. That ripple, that's as important as the direct impact. Because if we can inspire others to give, to change, to use their wealth well, the effect multiplies exponentially. Do you two consider yourselves friends now? They looked at each other. Keanu spoke first. I think so. We came from a strange place. An insult and a response. But we built something real from that. Mutual respect. Shared purpose. Brandon's doing hard work. Growing. Changing. I admire that. Brandon nodded. Keanu saved my life. Not literally, but actually, I was on a path to meaninglessness. To dying rich and miserable and alone. He showed me another way. Gave me a chance to become someone different. That's friendship. Real friendship. The kind that transforms you. The interview lasted 3 hours. They filmed far more than would air. But the core was there. The story of transformation. Of grace and redemption. Of wealth finding purpose. Of one night creating ripples that continue to spread. After filming ended, they gathered in Dr. Vasquez's office. Exhausted but satisfied. Leslie Stahl joined them. That was powerful. Really powerful. This will resonate. People need to see that change is possible. That billionaires can be forces for good. That wealth can serve something beyond ego. When will it air? Dr. Vasquez asked. 4 weeks. We'll promote it heavily. This is the kind of story 60 Minutes exists to tell. Real journalism about real impact. Thank you all for your time. For your honesty. After Leslie left, the group sat quietly. Processing. Finally, Brandon spoke. That was harder than I expected. Talking about who I was. Admitting my failures publicly. But necessary. If my transformation can inspire others, the embarrassment is worth it. You were brave, Dr. Lin said. Vulnerable. That's when real change happens. When we're willing to be seen as we actually are. Flaws and all. Maria added. And Keanu, thank you. For telling your story too. About the losses you've faced. The struggles. People think your life has been easy because you're successful. But you've suffered, endured, and you chose to respond with kindness anyway. That's heroic. I don't know about heroic. Just try to live with integrity. Make choices I can respect. They ordered dinner. Pizza delivered to the hospital. Sat in Dr. Vasquez's office eating and talking. About the foundation's future. About new research initiatives. About expanding to other cities. About the 10-year plan and beyond. The conversation was easy. Comfortable. These people had become family, bonded by shared purpose, by the work that mattered more than any of them individually. Around 10 p.m., Sophia appeared in the doorway. The little girl, now 10 years old, healthy and vibrant. Dr. Vasquez, my mom said I could come say hi before we go home. Sophia, Kumain, you remember Mr. Reeves and Mr. Cole? Of course. The painting men. She ran to Keanu, hugged him unselfconsciously. Then to Brandon, did the same. Are you making more paintings for hospitals? Brandon laughed. We're not making paintings, but we're helping make sure hospitals can help more kids like you. That's good, because hospitals are scary, but art makes them less scary. You should put art everywhere, in all the hospitals. That's actually a great idea, Dr. Vasquez said. We've been focused on medical funding, but therapeutic art programs, that's something we should explore. Sophia pulled out her ever-present sketchbook. I made this for you. She handed Keanu a drawing. Abstract, bright colors, energy and movement, clearly inspired by the Richter painting, but uniquely Sophia's own style. This is beautiful. Thank you, Sophia. It's called hope, because that's what your painting gave me. Hope that I get better. So now I make hope for other people. Keanu felt his throat tighten. Can I keep this? That's why I made it. For you. To say thank you. For helping me live. After Sophia and her mother left, the group sat in silence for a moment. Then Dr. Lin spoke. That child, she's alive because of the work we're doing. Because of the choices you two made. That's everything. That's why we do this. She's one of hundreds, Dr. Vasquez said. And there will be thousands more. This is just the beginning. Keanu looked at Sophia's drawing. At the bright colors and bold strokes. At the hope made visible. This was legacy, not fame or fortune, but a child alive, creating art, planning to help others. The chain continuing. The ripples spreading forever. For weeks later, the 60-minute segment aired. It was powerful. 20 minutes of the hour-long show dedicated to the story. The auction footage. The interviews. The children. The research. The transformation. It ended with Sophia showing her artwork, with her saying, I make hope for other people now. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The foundation's website crashed from traffic. Donation offers poured in. Other billionaires announcing their own initiatives. Teachers showing the segment in classrooms. Churches and community groups organizing fundraisers. The story had touched something, resonated at a frequency that created movement. Keanu's phone exploded with messages. From friends, from strangers, for people inspired to give, to help, to change. He read a few. One from a woman in Ohio. I've been wealthy for 20 years and selfish for 20 years. Your story made me realize I've been living wrong. I'm starting a foundation in my city, focusing on food insecurity. Thank you for showing me what's possible. Another from a college student. I don't have much money, but I have time. I'm volunteering at a children's hospital because of your story, because I want to be someone who helps. Thank you for the inspiration. Another from a CEO. I watched your interview, saw how Brandon changed, realized I'm the asshole billionaire right now. I want to change too. Can you help me figure out how? Keanu responded to that one. Start small. Find someone in need. Help them. No cameras. No press release. Just help. Do it again tomorrow. And the next day, it becomes a habit, then a life, then a legacy. The CEO wrote back. That's simple. That's simple. That hard. But possible. Always possible. Brandon called that night. Have you seen the response? It's overwhelming. Thousands of donations. Millions of dollars pledged. Other foundations starting. This is what we hoped for. Cultural shift. Movement. People were ready. They just needed to see it was possible. Needed permission to be generous. The story gave them that. We gave them that. You and me. An actor and a billionaire. Who would have thought? Life is strange. Best moments are usually unexpected. I am grateful for all of it. Even the humiliation at the auction. Especially that. Because it led here. To purpose. To meaning. To becoming someone I can respect. They talked for an hour. About the foundation's plans. About leveraging this attention. About making sure the momentum translated to sustained giving, not just a spike. About building something that lasted beyond them. Legacy that would continue after they were gone. 3 years after the auction, the Cole Foundation had become a model for billionaire philanthropy. Other wealthy individuals studied their approach. Transparency, accountability, impact measurement, real engagement, not just check writing. Brandon had become an unlikely spokesperson for purposeful wealth. Speaking at conferences, writing op-eds, challenging his peers to do more. But the attention brought scrutiny too. Journalists digging into Brandon's past, finding questionable business practices, labor violations at Nexus Technologies, environmental shortcuts, tax avoidance schemes. The narrative started shifting. Was this transformation real? Or it just PR to rehabilitate a damaged reputation? Keanu saw the articles, the exposés. Called Brandon. You okay? Honestly? No, they're not wrong. I did all those things. Cut corners. Exploited workers. Avoided taxes legally but immorally. I was that person. And now it's all coming out. What are you going to do? Tell the truth. Own it. I can't undo the past. But I can acknowledge it. Make amends where possible. Show that people can change even when their history is ugly. Brandon held a press conference. No PR team scripting him. Just honest admission. Everything in these articles is true. I built Nexus Technologies through practices I'm now ashamed of. I underpaid workers, fought unionization, used tax loopholes, prioritized profit over people. I was wrong, completely wrong. Reporters shouted questions. Brandon held up his hand. I can't undo those choices, but I can make different ones now. Today I'm announcing several things. First, Nexus Technologies is voluntarily recognizing the workers' union. No more fights. No more suppression. Second, we're conducting an independent audit of wages. Any worker found to be underpaid will receive back pay plus interest. Third, we're closing the tax loopholes. We'll pay our fair share, even if it costs us billions. More questions. Why now? Why not years ago? Because I was blind, arrogant, convinced that wealth meant I was right. Someone showed me I was wrong, taught me that real success isn't accumulation. It's contribution. I'm trying to live that now. Imperfectly, but genuinely. Is this just damage control? Paya? If it was PR, I'd have my team craft careful language. I'd minimize and deflect. Instead, I'm admitting everything. Taking responsibility. Will some people think it's performative? Probably. But the workers getting back pay, they'll know it's real. The families benefiting from the foundation, they'll know. That's what matters. The press conference went viral. Opinion was divided. Some praised Brandon's honesty, his willingness to admit mistakes and make amends. Others remained skeptical, saw it as a billionaire buying redemption. Keanu watched it all, impressed by Brandon's courage. It would have been easier to deflect, to hide behind lawyers and PR teams. Instead, he'd chosen vulnerability, accountability. That took strength. But the scrutiny extended to Keanu too. Articles questioning his involvement. Was he providing cover for a billionaire's past sins? Was his association with Brandon legitimizing exploitation? Some of his actor friends called, concerned. Keanu, you're getting pulled into this. Brandon's past is ugly. Are you sure you want to be associated with him? I'm not endorsing his past. I'm supporting his transformation. There's a difference. But people are conflating them, saying you're giving billionaires a pass. I'm giving one person a chance to grow, to become better. If we never forgive, never allow change, what's the point? People stay static, stay broken. I'd rather believe transformation is possible. He agreed to an interview. Not 60 Minutes this time. Something smaller. A podcast known for thoughtful conversations. The host, Ezra Klein, was smart and fair. Would ask hard questions, but listen to answers. They recorded in Keanu's home. Informal. Coffee and conversation. Ezra started direct. You become associated with Brandon Cole's redemption story, but his past is troubling. Labor exploitation, tax avoidance, environmental damage. Does that concern you? Of course it concerns me. Those actions hurt real people, caused real harm. I don't defend them, don't excuse them, but you're friends with him. You helped create his foundation. Aren't you implicitly condoning his past? I'm explicitly believing in his capacity to change. There's a difference. Brandon did terrible things. He admits that. He's making amends. changing his company's practices, using his wealth to help instead of harm. Should we never allow that? Should people who've done wrong be permanently condemned? There's a difference between forgiveness and accountability. Some argue billionaires like Brandon can buy their way out of consequences. Donate some money, get a reputation makeover, but the underlying exploitation continues. That's a fair critique, and it applies to some. But I've watched Brandon closely for 3 years. This isn't performance. He's genuinely changed how he operates. His company now pays fair wages, recognizes unions, pays full tax. He's not perfect, still learning, but the trajectory is real. Why does he deserve that chance when the workers he exploited didn't get chances? When they suffered real consequences while he remained rich? Keanu paused. This was a hard question, the one without easy answers. You're right. There's an asymmetry. Brandon faced social consequences, embarrassment, criticism, but not financial ruin, not the devastating consequences his workers faced. That's unjust. But what's the alternative? We can demand accountability. We can insist on restitution. Brandon's doing both. But if we say transformation is impossible, if we permanently condemn, we remove any incentive for change. People stay broken because there's no path to redemption. So, you believe anyone can change, no matter what they've done? I believe most people can change if given the opportunity and support. Not everyone. Some people are so damaged, so defended they can't. But most can. Brandon could. Has. That doesn't erase his past, but it creates a different future. What do you say to critics who think you're being naive? That billionaires are using your kindness as cover? I say maybe some are. Maybe there are people who'll perform change without actually changing. But that doesn't mean we stop believing in the possibility. We stay critical. We demand evidence. But we also stay open. Because cynicism serves power. If we assume everyone's irredeemable, those in power never have to change. They're already condemned. But if we demand change and believe it's possible, we create pressure. We create paths. We create hope. The interview continued for 2 hours, covering wealth inequality, the role of philanthropy, whether billionaires should exist, Keanu's own relationship to wealth, and how he navigated it. He was honest about the contradictions, about being wealthy while criticizing wealth, about benefiting from systems he wanted changed. I don't have pure answers. I'm complicit in systems I find unjust. I've made money from industries that exploit workers, damage the environment. I'm not standing outside pointing in. I'm inside, trying to do better while acknowledging I could always do more. That's uncomfortable, but it's honest. The episode released, and like the 60 Minutes piece, resonated. But differently. This time the conversation was more complex, more critical, more willing to sit with contradictions. Comment sections filled with debate. People arguing about redemption and accountability, about whether billionaires could change, about Keanu's role in all of it. Some defended him, praised his nuance, his willingness to believe in transformation while demanding accountability. Others criticized, said he was naive, providing cover for exploitation, being used by a billionaire who discovered that philanthropy was good PR. Keanu read it all, felt the weight of it. Call Brandon. This is harder than I expected. The criticism, the questioning. Welcome to my world. It's brutal out here. But Keanu, you don't have to defend me. You've done enough. More than enough. If this association is hurting you, step back. I'll understand. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just acknowledging it's complicated. That there aren't easy answers. That maybe both things are true. You've genuinely changed, and the system that allowed you to exploit workers in the first place is still broken. Both things are definitely true. I've changed, but I shouldn't have had the power to exploit people to begin with. Shouldn't have been able to accumulate billions while workers struggled. The system's broken. My personal transformation doesn't fix that. So what do? Brandon and Keanu exchanged glances. Brandon spoke. Sophia, what if I told you the foundation has a new scholarship program for young artists who've been patient? Full ride to any art school you want. Would you be interested? Her eyes went wide. Really? That's real. It's real. You'd have to apply. Show your portfolio. But looking at this work, I think you'd be accepted. Sophia threw her arms around Brandon. Then Keanu. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm going to make so much art, so much hope, for everyone. After she ran off to tell her parents, Brandon looked at Keanu. I just created a scholarship program on the spot. My board is going to kill me. They'll approve it. It's perfect, helping patient artists pursue their dreams. Full circle from the Richter donation. Sophia is going to be famous someday. I can feel it. And it's because we helped save her life. Because the hospital had resources to treat her. Because you bought a painting and gave it away. The chain of causation is stunning. That night, at dinner with Dr. Vasquez and the foundation board, they formalized the scholarship program. The Sofia Santos Scholarship for Patient Artists. Named after both Sofia and Maria Santos, the former patient on their board. Full funding for any former pediatric patient who wanted to pursue art professionally. 5 scholarships per year to start. More is funding allowed. Maria Santos cried when they told her, "My name, on a scholarship, for kids like I was, kids like Sophia. This is beyond anything I imagined." "You've earned it," Dr. Lin said. "Your advocacy, your service on this board, your lived experience. It's invaluable. This scholarship honors that." The program was announced the next day. Applications poured in. Young artists who'd survived childhood cancer, who'd found solace in creating, who dreamed of art school but couldn't afford it. Each application included a portfolio. Paintings, sculptures, photography, digital art. The talent was remarkable. The stories were wrenching. Every child had fought death. Every family had sacrificed everything. And now they had hope, possibility, futures. The selection committee reviewed over 200 applications for the first 5 scholarships. Choosing was agonizing. Everyone deserved support. Everyone had talent. Everyone had a story. Finally, they selected 5. Sophia was one. Her portfolio too strong to deny. The other 4 were equally talented, equally deserving. The scholarship would change their lives. At the awards ceremony, all 5 recipients spoke, shared their journeys, their battles with cancer, their discovery of art as healing, their dreams for the future. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Keanu sat next to Brandon, both of them overwhelmed by what they created. Not just a foundation, but a movement, a cultural shift, a demonstration that wealth could serve beauty, that money could create not just survival, but thriving, that helping people survive wasn't enough. You had to help them live. After the ceremony, Keanu found himself in conversation with the other 4 scholarship recipients. A 16-year-old boy named Marcus who photographed urban landscapes. A 15-year-old girl named Yuki who sculpted abstract figures. An 18-year-old named Jamal who painted portraits of other patients. A 17-year-old named Chun who created digital art about illness and recovery. Each one brilliant. Each one transformed by cancer and art. Each one now given a chance to pursue their passion. They thanked Keanu with the earnestness of teenagers who didn't yet know how to guard their emotions. "You saved our lives," Marcus said. "Not just medically, but actually, you showed us our art matters. That we matter. You've always mattered. I just helped remove obstacles. The talent, the drive, the vision. That's all you." Yuki spoke. "When I was sick, people treated me like I was dying, like I was already gone. The only time I felt alive was when I was creating, when I could make something beautiful. This scholarship says our art matters, that we're not just survivors. We're artists. You are artists. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." That night, unable to sleep, Keanu walked the streets of Memphis, thinking about chains of causation, about the auction 3 years ago, about $12 million in a painting, about Brandon's insult and his response, about every choice since then, every conversation, every donation, every life touched. The mathematics were impossible to fully calculate. Sophia alone was worth everything. But there were hundreds like Sophia, thousands receiving treatment, families saved from ruin, researchers making breakthroughs, and now young artists given chances to create, to become, to transform pain into beauty. All of it traceable back to one moment. One choice, one decision to respond with grace instead of rage, with teaching instead of destruction. The ripples had become waves. The waves had become a movement, and it was still growing. His phone buzzed. Text from Brandon. Can't sleep either. Walking. Thinking. Same. Want company. Meet me at the Mississippi River. Riverside Drive. 20 minutes later, they stood together looking at the water. The river ancient and powerful, flowing south toward the Gulf, carrying history, carrying possibility. They stood in silence for a while. Finally, Brandon spoke. Do you ever think about that night? The auction. All the time. I was such an ass. So arrogant. So convinced of my superiority. You could have destroyed me. One phone call to a journalist. Brandon Cole is a terrible person. Here's why. Your word against mine. You'd have one. I didn't want to destroy you. Wanted to teach you. Why though? What did you see in me that made you think I was worth saving? Keanu thought about it. Honestly, I saw myself. Not the arrogance, but the lostness. I've been lost. More than once. After my girlfriend died. After River died. After my sister got sick. I've been in places where I didn't know who I was or what mattered. People helped me. Show me paths forward. I wanted to do that for you. You did more than show me a path. You walked it with me. Stayed when I stumbled. Believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. That's friendship. Real friendship. You did the work. Don't minimize that. Changing is hard. Most people can't. You did. They watched the river flow. Constant movement. Never the same water twice. Always changing. Always becoming. Like people. Like lives. Like the possibility of transformation that never ended. What's next? Brandon asked. We've done so much. But there's always more. Always needs we're not meeting. We keep going. Keep expanding. Keep finding people to help. Keep pushing for systemic change. This work doesn't end. It's not a project with a completion date. It's a commitment. For life. For life. I like that. This is my life now. Not Nexus Technologies. That's just how I make money. The foundation. The advocacy. The helping. That's my life. That's who I am now. Then you've arrived. Not at the destination, but at understanding. The journey is the point. The work is the meaning. There's no finish line. Just daily choice to keep helping. Keep growing. Keep becoming better than you were. They stood there until dawn, watching the river, watching the sky lighten, watching Memphis wake up, a city full of people, full of struggles, full of possibilities. They couldn't help everyone, but they could help some, and those some would help others, and the chain would continue, forever expanding, forever reaching, forever demonstrating that another way was possible, that wealth could serve purpose, that people could change, that grace multiplied, that one moment of choosing kindness over cruelty could ripple forward infinitely, creating waves that would crash on shores they'd never see, helping people they'd never meet, building a world slightly better than the one they'd found. That was legacy. That was meaning. That was everything. For years after the auction, Keanu received an invitation to speak at Harvard Business School, a lecture series on ethical leadership. The professor organizing it, Dr. Amanda Winters, was persistent. We need voices like yours. People who've navigated wealth and fame without losing their humanity. Students here, they're brilliant, ambitious, but many are headed down the same path Brandon Cole was on. Accumulation as the only goal. Your story, what you did for him, what you both built together, it's a case study we teach. Come tell them directly. Keanu was reluctant. I'm not a business person. Don't have an MBA. Don't know corporate strategy. That's exactly why we need you. They'll hear plenty about maximizing shareholder value, about disruption and unicorns and exits. They need to hear about purpose, about using business as a tool for good, about wealth as responsibility. Please. He agreed. Flew to Boston on a cold November evening. The campus was beautiful. Historic buildings. Students rushing between classes. The energy of young people convinced they'd change the world. Some would. Most wouldn't. But all had potential. All were making choices now that would shape who they became. The lecture hall was packed. 300 students. Standing room only. Dr. Winters introduced him. Gave his background. Films. Philanthropy. The auction story. The Cole Foundation. The cultural impact. By the time she finished, Keanu felt the weight of expectation. These students wanted answers. Wanted formulas for success. Wanted to know how to be good and rich simultaneously. He wasn't sure he had those answers. He took the stage. No podium. Just him and a microphone. Walked to the front. Looked at the sea of young faces. Began. I'm not going to lecture you. I don't have that kind of wisdom. But I'll tell you a story. About an auction and a billionaire and a painting. About how one night changed hundreds of lives. And maybe you'll find something useful in it. He told it all. Brandon's insult. The bidding war. The donation. The meeting in Central Park. The foundation's creation. The lives saved. The transformation. He didn't make himself the hero. Didn't make Brandon the villain. Just told it honestly. The complexity. The contradictions. The ongoing work. When he finished, silence. Then a student in the front row raised her hand. Mr. Reeves, your story is inspiring. But it's also about billionaires. Most of us won't be billionaires. How do we apply these lessons when we're just starting out? When we have student loans and entry-level salaries? Good question. The numbers scale, but the principles don't. Brandon gave hundreds of millions. You might give hundreds, but the mindset is the same. Are you accumulating for accumulation's sake? Or are you building resources to deploy for good? That choice exists at every level. Even broke, you have time. Attention. Skills. You can give those. Generosity isn't about amounts. It's about orientation. About moving through the world asking, how can I help? Instead of how can I win? Another student. Male. Confident. But doesn't that put you at a competitive disadvantage? If everyone else is maximizing profit and you're worrying about purpose, won't you lose? Get left behind. Short term, maybe. Long term, no. Brandon spent 2 decades maximizing profit, built a $40 billion company, and was miserable, empty, had everything and nothing simultaneously. Then he shifted, started optimizing for purpose instead of profit, and became happier, more fulfilled, more successful by any measure that actually matters. Plus, and this is important, purpose-driven companies attract better talent, better customers, better partners. Goodness is good business. Not always, not immediately, but over time. A young woman in the back. What about when purpose and profit conflict? When doing the right thing costs money, costs jobs? What then? Keanu paused. This was the hard question. Then you have to choose. And sometimes the ethical choice is expensive. Sometimes doing right means earning less. That's uncomfortable, but it's also clarifying. Reveals what you actually value. Brandon faced this. Recognizing the union at Nexus cost him billions in short-term valuation. Closing tax loopholes cost even more. He did anyway, because he decided his values mattered more than his net worth. That's not easy, but it's honest. More questions about wealth inequality, about whether billionaires should exist, about the role of philanthropy versus taxation, about how to maintain integrity in corrupt systems. Keanu answered as honestly as he could, acknowledged what he didn't know, admitted his own complicity, pushed back when students wanted simple answers to complex questions. An hour in, a student asked something different. Mr. Reeves, you've lost people. Your girlfriend, your daughter, your best friend. How do you stay kind after that much pain? Most people would become bitter, closed off, but you're known for extraordinary kindness. How? The room went quiet. This wasn't about business. This was about being human. Keanu took a breath. I won't lie. The losses broke me. Multiple times. After Alexandra and our daughter died, I didn't work for a year. Couldn't. Was too shattered. After River died, I questioned everything. Wonder if life had meaning. If kindness mattered in a world that took beautiful people too soon. I struggled. Still struggle sometimes. But I realized something. Bitterness only hurts yourself. Doesn't bring anyone back. Doesn't make meaning from loss. But kindness does. Every time I help someone, every time I choose generosity over cruelty, I'm honoring the people I've lost. They were kind. They were generous. Keeping that alive, that's how I keep them alive. Does that make sense? The student who'd asked was crying. Others too. This wasn't what they'd expected from a business school lecture. But maybe it was what they needed. Not strategy, not tactics, but permission to be human. Permission to care. Permission to build lives of meaning instead of just money. After the lecture, students swarmed him, wanting to talk, to share their own struggles. their own questions about how to be good people in systems that rewarded ruthlessness. He stayed for 2 hours, talking to each one, listening to their stories, offering what guidance he could. One student, a young man named David, waited until the end. "Mr. Reeves, I'm from a poor family. First-generation college student. I came here to make money, to lift my family out of poverty. But your talk made me question that. Made me wonder if I'm chasing the wrong thing. But if I don't make money, how do I help my family?" You're asking the right questions, and there's no contradiction. You can help your family and have purpose, can make money and deploy it well. The trap isn't wealth. It's when wealth becomes the only goal. When you sacrifice everything, including who you are, to accumulate. Make enough to help your family. Then keep asking what enough means. Keep redefining success beyond just the number in your bank account. But what if I like making money? What if I'm good at it? Is that wrong? Not wrong. Amoral. Neutral. Making money is a skill. The question is what you do with that skill. Do you use it to just enrich yourself? Or do you use it to create value for others? To solve problems? To help people? The skill isn't the issue. The application is. David nodded slowly. "I think I understand. Thank you. For being honest. For showing us there's another way." After everyone left, Dr. Winters found Keanu. That was extraordinary. Not what I expected. More personal. More raw. But exactly what they needed to hear. "Thank you. Did it help?" I felt like I was rambling. "You were honest. That's rarer than you think." Most speakers give polished presentations. 5 steps to success. 7 habits of effective leaders. But you gave them truth. Messy. Complicated. Real. That's what changes minds. Keanu flew back to Los Angeles exhausted, but energized. The students' questions had made him think. Made him examine his own choices more critically. He'd been so focused on the Cole Foundation, on helping children, that he'd maybe neglected other issues. Climate change, racial justice, economic inequality. There was infinite need. How did you choose? How did you allocate finite resources against infinite problems? He didn't have answers, but he had a method. Follow your heart. Give where you're moved. Trust that your particular combination of resources and passion could make a difference in your particular sphere. You couldn't solve everything, but you could solve something. That had to be enough. 5 years after the auction, Brandon Cole appeared on the cover of Time magazine. The billionaire who changed. The article was extensive, chronicled his transformation, his foundation's impact, the policy advocacy, the corporate reforms at Nexus, the lives saved, but it also maintained healthy skepticism, questioned whether one person's redemption mattered when the system that enabled his wealth remained intact. Push him on contradictions, on ways he still benefited from inequality. Brandon handled it well, didn't get defensive, acknowledged the critiques. "I'm not a saint. I'm a work in progress. The system that made my wealth possible is broken. I'm using that wealth to change the system." Is that hypocritical? Maybe, but it's what I've got. These are the resources I have. This is the influence I have. I'm deploying both for change. It's imperfect, but it's real. The article ended with a section on Keanu. The man who changed the billionaire prefers to remain in the background. Keanu Reeves has given tens of millions to various causes. But his real gift to Brandon Cole was grace. The willingness to see potential instead of just past behavior. To believe transformation was possible. That grace created everything that followed. Every life saved. Every policy changed. Every dollar deployed for good. It started with one person choosing compassion over condemnation. That might be the real lesson. That change begins not with systems, but with individual choices. With moments of grace that ripple forward infinitely. Keanu read the article twice. Felt uncomfortable with the praise. He'd just responded to a moment. Hadn't planned to change anyone's life. Hadn't strategized impact. Just followed instinct. Was that worthy of celebration? Or just basic decency? He wasn't sure. His phone rang. His sister Kim. "You're in Time magazine." "My little brother." Famous actor turned billionaire whisperer. "I didn't do anything special." You never think you do. That's part of why it is special. Can I ask you something? Honestly, always. Do you ever worry you're being used? That Brandon's using your credibility to whitewash his past? That other billionaires are watching and thinking I can exploit workers, avoid taxes, damage the environment, then donate some money and have Keanu Reeves vouch for me. The question hit hard, because he'd worried about exactly that. Yes, I worry about that constantly, which is why I'm careful. I don't vouch for everyone. Only people I've watched closely. People whose change seems real. Brandon's transformation has been genuine. I've seen it over 5 years. The corporate reforms are real. The foundation's impact is real. His ongoing growth is real. But you're right to worry. I don't want to be a redemption laundromat for billionaires. How do you know who's real and who's performing? Time. Consistency. Are they making changes when nobody's watching? Are they doing hard things that cost them money? Are they still growing, still learning, still admitting mistakes? Those are indicators. But I'm not perfect at discernment. I could be wrong. Could be fooled. That's scary. Lot of responsibility. It is. Which is why I'm selective. I've turned down requests from other wealthy people wanting my association, wanting me to help rehabilitate their images. I only work with people I genuinely believe in. Only tell stories I think are true. They talked for another hour. About responsibility. About discernment. About how success had given Keanu platform, but also potential to cause harm. Every choice amplified. Every endorsement meaningful. Every association interpreted. It was exhausting sometimes, but necessary. Power required care, required consciousness, required constant examination. That night, Keanu received an email from a name he didn't recognize. Subject line, "You saved my father's life." He opened it. "Mr. Reeves, my name is Jennifer Cole, Brandon's daughter. We've never met. He keeps his family private, but I wanted to write to thank you. 5 years ago, my father was a stranger to me. We had the same last name, but no real relationship. He was always working, always traveling, always building his empire. When he was home, he was distant, distracted. I grew up resenting him, resenting his wealth, wishing he'd just be a dad instead of CEO. Then something changed. After your auction, after you two met, he started coming home, started being present, started asking about my life, really asking, really listening, started going to therapy, started acknowledging how his obsession with work had damaged our family, started trying to repair things. We have a relationship now, a real one. I know my dad. He knows me. We have dinner every week, talk on the phone. He's met my fiancée, is walking me down the aisle next month. None of that would have happened without you, without whatever you said to him that day in Central Park. You didn't just change his business practices. You gave me my father back. Thank you. More than I can express. Jennifer." Keanu read it 3 times. Started typing a response. Stopped. Started again. Finally wrote, "Jennifer, thank you for telling me this. I didn't know about you, about the family impact. I'm so glad you have your father back. That relationship was always there. I just helped him see it. The credit belongs to him. He made the choice to change, to prioritize what matters. I'm honored to have played a small role. Congratulations on your wedding. Wishing you every happiness." Keanu. He sent it, then sat staring at his phone. This was an impact he hadn't anticipated, hadn't considered. He'd been focused on sick children, on research funding, on lives saved through medicine. But Jennifer's email revealed other ripples. Family relationships repaired. A daughter getting her father back. A wedding he'd be present for. Lives improved in quieter, more intimate ways. The mathematics of compassion were impossible to fully calculate. Every action created consequences you couldn't predict, couldn't measure, couldn't always see. You just had to trust that choosing kindness created more kindness, that grace multiplied, that good begot good even when you couldn't trace the causation. 6 years after the auction, Keanu turned 60. His friends threw him a small party. Not a big Hollywood affair. Just 20 people. Close friends. Family. People who'd known him before fame. Who'd stuck around after. David Chin was there. His publicist Amanda. His trainer. His sister Kim and nephew Sam. A few actor friends who'd become real friends. And Brandon Cole. Brandon had asked permission to come. "I know it's your private circle, but you've become important to me. Not as the person who changed me. As a friend. If it's okay, I'd like to be there." Keanu had said yes. Because it was true. Somewhere in the past 6 years, beyond the foundation and the transformation story, they become actual friends. People who called each other with good news and bad, who showed up for each other, who transcended the origin story of their connection. At the party, Brandon stood to give a toast. I'm probably not supposed to speak. This is Keanu's close circle, and I'm the reformed billionaire who crashed it. But I wanted to say something. 6 years ago, I was the richest, lonely person you'd ever meet. I had $40 billion and no meaning, no purpose, no real relationships. Then Keanu Reeves humiliated me at a charity auction. Laughter. Keanu shook his head but smiled. Brandon continued. He outbid me, donated the painting, made me look like the arrogant ass I was. I could have hated him, could have used my wealth to make his life difficult. Instead, he offered me grace, met with me, talked to me like a human, showed me another way to live. That grace changed my life, literally changed everything. I have purpose now. I have real relationships. I'm present for my daughter. I wake up every day knowing why I'm here. That's because of this man, because he chose compassion over contempt. So Keanu, on your 60th birthday, I want to say thank you. Thank you for seeing who I could be when I couldn't see it myself. Thank you for your patience, your friendship, your wisdom. You've saved hundreds of lives through the foundation, but you also saved mine. Happy birthday, friend. Keanu felt his throat tighten, stood, embraced Brandon. Thank you for the work, for the growth, for becoming someone worth celebrating. His sister Kim spoke next. I've watched my brother navigate fame for 3 decades, seen how it could have destroyed him, how it destroys so many. But Keanu stayed Keanu, stayed kind, stayed grounded, stayed someone who cares more about people than press. I'm proud of his films, but I'm prouder of how he lives, how he treats everyone with dignity, how he uses his resources to help, how he's raised my son to value character over wealth. Happy birthday, little brother. You're aging well. Sam, now 20, spoke last. Uncle Keanu taught me that success isn't about what you achieve. It's about who you become. He's achieved a lot. Famous movies, lots of money. But his real success is he's kind. He's present. He shows up. When my dad left, Uncle Keanu stepped in, came to my games, helped with homework, talked to me about life. He didn't have to, but he did, because that's who he is, someone who helps. I'm trying to be like that, to measure success by impact instead of income. That's his gift to me. Happy birthday, Uncle Keanu. Love you. Keanu couldn't speak. Too moved. Just nodded. Raised his glass. They sang happy birthday. Cut cake. Talked and laughed until late. It was perfect. Simple. Real. The kind of celebration he preferred. No cameras. No performance. Just people who loved him. Who knew him. Who'd chosen to be in his life. Later, after most people had left, Keanu found himself on his back deck with Brandon, looking at the Los Angeles lights spreading below. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for inviting me. Your friends are good people. Real people. No pretense. That's why they're my friends. I can't stand pretense. Can I tell you something? Being here tonight, seeing your relationships, your family, your friends, it showed me what I'm still building toward. I have purpose now. I have the foundation. But the wedding was a celebration, but also a testimony to transformation, to repair, to the possibility that broken things could be made whole. Not perfect, not erased, but healed, usable, beautiful in their brokenness. Keanu watched Brandon dance with his daughter, saw the love on both their faces, saw the years of absence acknowledged and forgiven, saw the future they were building together. This was legacy too, not just sick children saved, but relationships restored, families healed, lives made whole in intimate, invisible ways. 7 years after the auction, Dr. Elena Vasquez called with news. Her voice carried an emotion Keanu couldn't immediately identify. Not sadness, not quite joy, something complex. Keanu, I need to tell you something. I'm stepping down as director of St. Jude's. His heart sank. Are you okay? Is something wrong? I'm fine. Better than fine. But I'm 68. I've been doing this for 23 years. It's time. I want to retire while I still have energy to enjoy it. To travel. To spend time with my grandchildren. To live. You've earned that. More than earned it. But the hospital. Who will replace you? That's what I'm calling about. The board has selected someone. Dr. Maria Santos. Maria, the former patient. The foundation board member. The woman who'd survived childhood leukemia and dedicated her life to helping others survive. That's perfect. She's perfect. She is. But she's nervous. Feels the weight of it. I told her you'd help. That you'd support her. Was I right? Absolutely. Whatever she needs. Maria's going to be extraordinary. 2 weeks later, Keanu attended the transition ceremony. Dr. Vasquez officially handing leadership to Dr. Santos. The event was held in the hospital lobby, in front of the Richter painting. The symbolism deliberate. Everything that had happened, everything that had been built, it all traced back to that painting, to the choice to give it away, to the understanding that beauty healed alongside medicine. Dr. Vasquez gave a speech, talked about her 23 years, the thousands of children treated, the hundreds of lives saved, the research breakthroughs, the families helped. She talked about the painting, about how Keanu's donation had changed everything, had funded a year of operations, had inspired Brandon Cole, had created a cascade of generosity that transformed the institution. When that painting arrived 7 years ago, I thought it was just a beautiful object. Valuable, yes, but just a thing. I didn't understand it was a seed that would grow into something immense, into a foundation, into policy changes, into a movement, into this moment, where I can retire knowing this hospital will continue, will thrive, because resources are stable, because people care, because one man chose grace over revenge. Keanu Reeves, would you please stand? He stood reluctantly. The room applauded, not politely, but with genuine appreciation, with recognition of what his choice had created. Dr. Vasquez continued, "You changed my hospital, but you also changed me. You showed me that transformation is possible, that people can grow, that grace works. I'll carry those lessons into retirement, into the rest of my life. Thank you." Then Dr. Maria Santos took the microphone. She looked small behind the podium, young, despite being 33. But her voice was strong. 26 years ago, I was dying. 7 years old. Leukemia. My family couldn't afford treatment. We were going to let me die. I accepted it. Then we found St. Jude's. Dr. Vasquez was just starting as director. She looked at my parents and said, "We don't turn anyone away. Your daughter will be treated. You won't receive a bill." That promise saved my life. Not just medically, but actually, it told me I mattered. That my life had value regardless of my family's bank account. That's a powerful message for a 7-year-old. Her voice caught. She took a moment. I survived, obviously, but the treatment left me with complications. Nerve damage, chronic pain, challenges I'll manage for life. I could have been angry, could have felt victimized. Instead, I felt grateful. Alive was better than dead, even with complications. So I decided to dedicate my life to this place, to this mission, to ensuring every child gets the chance I got. That's why I'm here. That's why I'll serve as director with everything I have. Because I was saved. Now I save others. That's the deal. The room was silent. Then, standing ovation. Maria Santos, the little girl who'd almost died, was now leading the institution that had saved her. The poetry was almost too perfect, except it was real, actually happening. Keanu watched, overwhelmed. This was what ripples looked like. Not just immediate impact, but generational change. Maria would lead for decades, would save thousands of children, would inspire the next generation. And it all traced back to her being saved, to the hospital having resources, to the donation cascade, to the auction, to the choice to give instead of hoard. After the ceremony, Maria found Keanu. "Thank you for being here. It means everything. I wouldn't have missed it. You're going to be incredible. I am terrified." Dr. Vasquez is a legend. How do I follow that? You don't follow it. You build on it. You bring your own gifts, your lived experience, your understanding of what it means to be a patient. That's irreplaceable. Can I ask you something? The painting. Why did you really donate it? The official story is beautiful. Art heals, children need beauty, all of that. But what was the real reason? Keanu thought about it. Honestly, it felt obscene to keep it, to hang $1 million painting in my house while children died for lack of resources. The The math didn't work. My aesthetic pleasure versus lives saved. The choice was obvious. But most people with resources don't see it that way. Don't feel that obligation. Why do you? Because I've been lucky. Extraordinarily lucky. Right place, right time, right opportunities. None of it was guaranteed. I could easily have ended up differently. That awareness, that my fortune was largely chance, it creates responsibility. I have resources I didn't entirely earn, so I try to deploy them where they matter most. For me, that's children. For others, it's different causes. But the principle is the same. Luck creates obligation. Maria nodded slowly. I want to expand that principle. Make it institutional. Not rely on individual generosity, but on systemic commitment. I want universal pediatric health care. Every child treated regardless of ability to pay. Not through charity, but through policy. Through society deciding children's lives matter more than profits. That's ambitious. That's perfect. How can I help? Use your platform. Speak about it. When you do interviews, when you have opportunities, talk about why healthcare is a right, especially for children. Your voice carries weight. Use it. I will. Absolutely. 8 years after the auction, Congress debated healthcare reform, a bill that would guarantee coverage for all children under 18. No copii, no denials, no bankruptcies. It was ambitious, expensive, politically complicated, faced enormous opposition from insurance companies, from fiscal conservatives, from people who saw it as socialism. The Cole Foundation became a major advocate. Brandon testified before Congress, explained how his foundation spent hundreds of millions treating children whose families couldn't afford care, how that was inefficient, how universal coverage would be cheaper and more effective, how children's health shouldn't depend on parental income. His testimony was powerful. A billionaire arguing for higher taxes, for government programs, for systemic solutions over charitable band-aids. But the opposition was fierce. The bill stalled, needed momentum, needed public pressure, needed voices people trusted. Keanu got a call from Maria Santos. We need you. Need your voice. Will you testify? I'm not a healthcare expert. Don't have policy expertise. You don't need expertise. You need authenticity. Tell them about the painting, about the children you've met, about why this matters. People listen to you. Trust you. Please. He agreed. Flew to Washington. Sat in a congressional hearing room, feeling wildly out of place. Representatives and senators at a raised bench. Cameras everywhere. Formal procedures. He gave a statement. My name is Keanu Reeves. I'm an actor. I don't have healthcare expertise or policy credentials. But I've spent 8 years watching children fight cancer. Watching families destroyed financially while trying to save their kids. Watching a system that's broken in fundamental ways. I donated $12 million to a children's hospital. That helped, but it's not enough. Individual charity, no matter how generous, can't solve systemic problems. We need systemic solutions. This bill, guaranteeing health care for all children, it's not radical. It's moral. It's saying children's lives matter more than insurance company profits. That's not socialism. It's decency. I urge you to pass it. Short, simple, direct. No policy jargon, just moral clarity. The room was silent when he finished. Then a senator, a conservative from a red state, spoke. Mr. Reeves, who's going to pay for this? These programs cost money. Should we raise taxes? Increase the deficit? Where does the money come from? From us. For people like me who have far more than we need. From corporations posting record profits while children go untreated. From a society deciding that children matter. The money exists. We choose how to allocate it. Currently, we choose endless military spending, corporate subsidies, tax cuts for billionaires. We could choose children instead. That's not an economic question. It's a values question. Another senator, a progressive from California. You've donated millions to healthcare. If we pass this bill, guarantee coverage, will you stop donating? Will private philanthropy disappear? No. Philanthropy and policy aren't opposed. They're complementary. This bill covers basics, universal access. But innovation, research, special programs, those still need philanthropic funding. The Cole Foundation will continue its work regardless. But we'd rather fund breakthroughs than basic care. Let policy handle basics. Let philanthropy push boundaries. That's efficient allocation. The hearing continued for an hour. Other witnesses, experts, advocates, opponents. But Keanu's testimony was the clip that went viral. His face in every news story. His words quoted everywhere. Children's lives matter more than insurance company profits. That's not socialism. It's decency. The phrase became a rallying cry. Protesters used it on signs. Advocates repeated it in interviews. It captured something simple and true that cut through policy complexity. The bill didn't pass immediately. Politics was slow, but momentum built. Public opinion shifted. Polls showed 70% support for universal children's health care. Representatives who opposed it faced primary challenges. Senators received thousands of calls. The pressure became unsustainable. 6 months after Keanu's testimony, a modified version of the bill passed. Not perfect. Compromises had been made, but substantial. Every child would have health care. No family would face bankruptcy from pediatric medical bills. It was real. It was law. The signing ceremony was at the White House. The president invited key advocates. Brandon was there. Maria Santos. Dr. Vasquez. Families who'd been helped by St. Jude's. And Keanu. The president spoke about the bill's importance, about children's futures, about America's values, then turned to the advocates. This law exists because people refuse to accept the status quo, because a billionaire chose purpose over profit, because a former patient became a leader, because an actor used his voice for something that mattered, because people believed change was possible and fought for it. Thank you. After the ceremony, the group gathered for photos. The president with advocates, families with children who'd been saved, everyone celebrating. A photographer captured a moment. Keanu, Brandon, Maria, and Dr. Vasquez standing together. For people brought together by chance and choice, who'd built something that outlasted them. The photo would be reprinted thousands of times, would hang in hospital lobbies, would inspire future generations, would prove that transformation was possible, that systems could change, that individuals mattered. That night, Keanu had dinner with Brandon at a quiet restaurant in Georgetown. Just the two of them, processing what had happened. We did it, Brandon said. Actually changed policy. Saved countless children we'll never meet. This is bigger than the foundation. This is systemic. You did this. Your testimony, your advocacy, your willingness to argue for higher taxes on yourself. That was crucial. I learned it from you. 8 years ago, you could have destroyed me. Instead, you taught me. Showed me that wealth was responsibility. That having more meant owing more. I've just been trying to live that lesson ever since. And you have. Better than I imagined. You've become exactly who I hoped you could be. Who I didn't know I could be. That's the gift. Not the money or the platform, but the belief. You believed I could change when I didn't. That belief created space for transformation. I'll never forget that. They talked for hours. About the 8-year journey. About the lives touched. About the ripples that continued spreading. About what came next. Because there was always a next. Always more work. Always needs unmet. But tonight they could celebrate. Could acknowledge what they'd built together. Could feel satisfied with the impact. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Tonight was for gratitude. 9 years after the auction, Sophia Santos graduated from art school. Rhode Island School of Design. One of the most prestigious art programs in the country. She'd thrive there. Developed her unique style. Abstract work that combined color theory with emotional depth. Her senior thesis exhibition was reviewed in the New York Times. Sophia Santos creates hope made visible. Her paintings don't just depict emotion. They generate it. Looking at her work, you feel lifted. Reminded that beauty exists. That life, even painful life, has moments of transcendence. This is healing art in the truest sense. The Cole Foundation Scholarship had paid for everything. For years of tuition, housing supplies. No loans, no debt, just freedom to create, to develop, to become the artist she was meant to be. For her graduation, Keanu flew to Providence. Sat in the audience watching her receive her degree. She looked so different from the bald 7-year-old he'd met 9 years ago. Adult now, healthy, vibrant, accomplished, but still carrying that same energy, that same determination to create hope. At the reception, Sophia found him. "You came. I can't believe you came." "Of course I came. This is a big day. It's because of you. All of this. The scholarship, the opportunity, the fact that I'm alive to graduate. You saved my life. Then you funded my education. I don't know how to thank you. Thank me by doing what you're already doing. Creating, helping others through your art. That's thanks enough. I have something for you." She handed him a small painting, maybe 12 by 12 inches. Abstract, swirling colors, but unmistakably hope. "This is for you. It's called Grace, because that's what you gave me. Gave all of us. Grace." Keanu's eyes filled. "It's beautiful. I'll treasure it. Hang it somewhere you see it. Let it remind you what you've built. Not just me, but hundreds like me. Thousands. You changed the world, Mr. Reeves. One choice at a time." After graduation, Sophia moved to New York, set up a studio in Brooklyn, started creating full-time. Her work began appearing in galleries. Small ones at first, then larger. Critics noticed. Collectors noticed. Within 2 years, she had her first solo show at a prestigious Manhattan gallery. The opening was packed. Art world elite, collectors, critics, and the people who'd save her life. Dr. Vasquez, now fully retired. Maria Santos, leading St. Jude's. Brandon Cole, and Keanu. The show was called Survival and Beauty. 9 years. 9 large canvases, each representing a year since her cancer treatment. The progression visible. Early works more chaotic, reflecting trauma. Later works more coherent, reflecting healing. But all carrying that signature quality. Hope made visible. Pain transformed into beauty. The reviews were ecstatic. Sophia Santos is the voice of her generation. Someone who stared at death and chosen to create life. Her work doesn't deny suffering. It transforms it, makes it meaningful, makes it beautiful. The show sold out. Every painting purchased. The proceeds totaling over $500,000. Sophia stood in the empty gallery after the opening, overwhelmed. "I can't believe this is my life. 9 years ago, I was dying. Now, I'm a professional artist. My work is in collections. I'm making a living creating hope. It's too much. Too good." Maria Santos, who'd become a mentor to Sophia, spoke. "It's not too much. It's what you've earned. Through surviving, through persisting, through developing your gift. You deserve this success. But so many don't make it. So many children die. Why did I survive? I ask myself that question every day. Why did I survive when others didn't? I don't have an answer, except that we have an obligation. Those of us who survived, to live fully, to create meaning, to help others. You're doing that. Your art heals people. That's not an accident. That's purpose." Sophia turned to Keanu. "What do you think? Do survivors have obligations?" "I think everyone has obligations. Survivors perhaps feel it more acutely. But whether you survived cancer or just survived another day, the question is the same. What will you do with the time you have? How will you use your gifts?" You're answering those questions beautifully. 10 years after the auction, they held an anniversary gala. Not to raise money. The Cole Foundation was well-funded now, but to celebrate, to reflect, to gather everyone who'd been part of the journey. The venue was, inevitably, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, where it all started, where Brandon had insulted actors and Keanu had responded with $12 million and a painting. The room was transformed. Photos covering the walls. Children who'd been treated. Research breakthroughs. Policy victories. Lives saved. The visual representation of 10 years of impact was overwhelming. Keanu walked through the exhibition before the event started. Saw Sophia's face at age 7. Bald and thin, but smiling. Then, at age 17. Healthy and vibrant. Then recent photos of her art show. The progression from sick child to accomplished artist. All captured visually. He saw other children. Dozens of them. Some who'd survived. Some who hadn't. Each face a story. Each life maturing infinitely. He saw photos of Brandon. From 10 years ago, arrogant and closed. To recent photos, open and engaged. The physical transformation visible. Different posture. different expression, different energy. He saw photos of himself at the auction, at the hospital with children, at congressional testimony, at Sophia's graduation. His own journey visible, from actor to advocate to catalyst for change. The gala began. 500 people, donors, doctors, researchers, families, advocates, everyone who'd contributed to the work. Maria Santos welcomed everyone, gave an overview of 10 years of impact. The numbers were staggering. Over 2,000 children treated at St. Jude's alone. Hundreds of millions in research funding. Dozens of breakthroughs. Universal children's health care law passed. Thousands of families saved from bankruptcy. Lives transformed beyond counting. Then Brandon spoke. 10 years ago, I was an arrogant billionaire who thought wealth made me superior. I insulted actors at a charity event. Specifically insulted the man sitting right there. He pointed to Keanu. I called actors clowns who knew nothing about real money. I was wrong. Spectacularly wrong. That man taught me what real money means. What real wealth is. He spent $12 million to teach me a lesson. Best investment anyone ever made in me. That lesson changed my life. Changed thousands of lives. Changed policy. Changed culture. All because he chose grace over revenge. Chose teaching over destroying. Chose to believe I could become better than I was. That belief created everything we're celebrating tonight. Keanu, would you please come up here? Keanu walked to the stage reluctantly. Brandon handed him the microphone. The room waited. Keanu looked out at the faces. So many people. So many stories. So much impact. He spoke. I don't like being the center of attention. Prefer to work quietly. But tonight I'll accept it. Because this story isn't about me. It's about all of us. Brandon, who chose to change. Maria, who survived and dedicated her life to saving others. Dr. Vasquez, who built an institution on the principle that children's lives matter more than profit. Sophia, who transformed pain into beauty. Every doctor, researcher, donor, volunteer in this room. We all contributed. We all mattered. But if I'm honest, the real credit goes to the children. To the ones who fought, who survived, who showed us what courage looks like. They're the heroes. We just try to give them a chance. He paused, looked at the photos on the walls. 10 years ago, I bid $12 million for a painting. Highest amount I'd ever spent on anything. Felt insane in the moment. Reckless. But it was the best decision I ever made. Not because of the recognition. Not because of the foundation or the policy changes or any of that. But because of Sophia. Because of the little girl who loved that painting. Who found hope in it. Who survived and became an artist and now creates hope for others. If that painting only helped her, it would have been worth it. But it helped thousands. And the ripples continue. Will continue long after we're gone. That's what wealth can do when used well. It doesn't just buy things. It creates possibilities. Futures. Hope. That's real wealth. That's what matters. The room stood. Applauded. Not for Keanu specifically, but for what they'd all built together. For the demonstration that change was possible. That people could transform. That systems could bend toward justice. That grace multiplied. That one choice could ripple forward infinitely. After the speeches, people mingled. Shared stories. Celebrated victories. Mourned losses. Looked toward the future. Keanu found himself in conversation with a group of teenagers. All former patients. All healthy now. They wanted to know how to live with survivor's guilt. How to handle the weight of being alive when others weren't. How to make meaning from survival. He didn't have perfect answers. Just shared his own experience. I lost people I loved. Wondered why I survived when they didn't. Eventually, I realized the question was wrong. It's not why me, but what now? You survived. That's the reality. The question is what you'll do with that survival. How you'll honor those who didn't make it. How you'll use your time. You don't have to save the world. Just have to live with intention. With gratitude. With awareness that life is precious and brief and worth living fully. One girl, maybe 16, spoke up. But what if we can't do big things? What if we're just ordinary? Is that enough? Ordinary is extraordinary. Living well. Being kind. Showing up for people. Creating beauty or joy or comfort. Those aren't small things. Those are everything. Sophia creates art. Maria leads a hospital, but someone who teaches children to read, someone who makes people laugh, someone who listens when others need to talk. Those are equally valuable lives. Scale doesn't determine worth. Intention does. Later, near midnight, Keanu found himself alone with Brandon. The gala winding down, staff cleaning up, the two of them sitting in the now-quiet main hall. 10 years, Brandon said. A decade. Feels like yesterday and like forever ago, simultaneously. I know what you mean. Sometimes I can't believe it's been that long. Sometimes it feels like we've always been doing this work. Do you ever regret it? The $12 million? The time invested? The scrutiny? You could have just called me an asshole and moved on with your life. Never. Not once. This has been the most meaningful decade of my life. Not the films or the fame, but this. Helping children. Watching you transform. Building something that matters. I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Even knowing the criticism, the questions, the accusations of being naive. Especially knowing that, because it means we touch something real. Something that matters enough to generate strong reactions. If everyone agreed with us, we probably weren't doing anything important. That's wise. I'm still learning to handle criticism. Still taking it personally sometimes. You'll never fully stop taking it personally. That's okay. It means you care. Just remember why you're doing this. Remember the children, the families, the impact. That's real. The criticism is just noise. They sat in silence for a while. Then Brandon asked something he'd never asked before. Do you think about that night? The auction? What would have happened if you hadn't been there? If I'd bought that painting? Sometimes, I think you'd have hung it in your office. Used it as a status symbol. Gradually realized it made you feel empty. Maybe that emptiness would have led to change eventually. Or maybe not. We'll never know. I think I'd still be the same person I was. Miserable billionaire. Alienated from my daughter. Obsessed with accumulation. Headed for a lonely death surrounded by wealth. You saved me from that. Literally saved my life. You saved yourself. I just showed you the door. You walked through it. You did the work. You changed. That's you, Brandon. Not me. It's both of us. That's what partnership is. That's what friendship is. Helping each other become who we're meant to be. You helped me. I hope I've helped you too. You have. You've shown me that transformation is real. That people can change fundamentally. That grace works. I believe those things theoretically. You prove them practically. That's a gift. They eventually left. Walked out of the museum into the New York night. Cool October air. 10 years to the day after the original auction. The symmetry felt meaningful. They stood on the steps. Same place, Brandon said. Different people. Or same people, different versions. Both. We're still ourselves. Just better versions. Still growing. Still learning. Still becoming. What's next? Another 10 years. However long we have. Keep doing the work. Keep helping. Keep growing. Keep demonstrating that another way is possible. They shook hands. Then embraced. Brothers in the work. Partners in transformation. Friends who'd found each other through the strangest circumstances and built something beautiful from that strange beginning. Keanu flew back to Los Angeles the next morning. On the plane, he thought about the past decade, about everything that had cascaded from one choice, one moment of deciding to respond with grace instead of anger, with teaching instead of revenge, with abundance instead of scarcity. The ripples were still spreading, would continue spreading. Children were alive who wouldn't have been. Families were whole who would have been broken. An artist was creating who might have died at 7. A billionaire had purpose who'd been empty. Policy had changed. Culture had shifted. Hearts had opened. All because of one moment. One choice. One decision to believe that transformation was possible and act accordingly. That was the real lesson. Not about money or philanthropy or billionaires or any of that. About belief. About grace. About the possibility that people could change. That systems could bend. That darkness could transform into light. About choosing hope over cynicism. Connection over isolation. Love over fear. That was the work. The daily practice of choosing better. Of believing better. Of acting as if transformation was possible until it became real. Not perfect. Never perfect. But always progressing. Always reaching. always demonstrating that another way existed. That kindness multiplied. That grace created grace. That one person's choice to help could ripple forward infinitely, creating waves that would crash on shores they'd never see, helping people they'd never meet, building a world slightly better than the one they'd found. That was enough. That was everything. That was the legacy worth leaving.